Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. And thank you to the 1,000 subscribers. The first 1,000 are always the hardest to get. And I guess we can go to both cameras here so we can both thank the audience.
Yes, thank you so much. It's been a while since we opened this English channel, because originally we did start both channels. Like, our original channel in English is what is now my Spanish channel. So thank you so much.
And we're going to start off with personality politics. And we're going to show some of our original videos on our original channel and how we kind of started. Thank you to everybody in Alberta as well. You really help us push over that final hump with a lot of subscribers. Our a video on Mr. Wrath there did extremely well. So...
And also thank you so much to the OGs, which would be Rafa, Walker, Non, Neo, who else? Sirius, who else always comments? And everybody else who has been here since before we got to 1,000, since before we started even talking about Alberta. Steve Surfaro, I think I said. Yeah. So thank you to all of you as well, because you've been very important with the comments, and Ethel over on RUMBLE as well.
Yeah, and a special thanks to Rafa. He's been a supporter right from the beginning. He was the first person to get a membership over on Rumble, so that has been a big help. And just having him comment every week, because there was nobody commenting on our videos before, and it was tough. So just having one really, really loyal supporter really just helped us go in those like kind of dark moments when you're like, is this even going to work out? Are we going to get monetized? 1,000 subscribers is monetization. So it really helps us do this more permanently, especially because we're really touching on, I think, very important political issues now with the separatist movements happening in Canada and geopolitics. Mm-hmm. We'll start with personality politics. We're going to put some of our old videos in and talk about how we started doing YouTube, and then we'll go into regular geopolitics and stuff like that.
But also, before we start, please still don't forget to subscribe, because we're trying to continue this, but also subscribe because that way you can comment and we read all your comments live. And especially right now when we're doing kind of like a small 1,000 subscriber celebration, ask us not anything you want, but ask us anything you're curious about at least.
Yeah, so it doesn't have to be just on geopolitics.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's go to personality politics, but it's us, essentially.
I'm angry. I've had enough of these people.
But after, we're also getting into Candace as well.
Just a little bit, just a couple of stories, because she's taking a week off. And I kind of want to end it because we're not going to talk about her next week.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go into the first video that we ever made here. And this was on our original channel. Originally, that original channel was in English, but we had to transition it to Spanish when we did move to Mexico because Canada just got too crazy with its politics.
And now it's called Nat en tu idioma, or Nat in your language. If you speak Spanish, go subscribe there and come talk to me as well.
But we went to the Canadian border during the truckers' protest, not the one in Ottawa, but they were going on all across the country, in Alberta, also in BC, and we went to the BC ones. One moment, I'm going to fix the camera.
Rafa will love this moment, because Rafa loves when we have technical issues, and we still do. But yes, we were going down to the border. We wanted to support, but also we decided to start to document some things that we wanted to also be able to speak as well. I think my camera is also going. Everything's going, nothing's working today. It is Friday the 13th after all. Let us know how you're spending your Valentine's Day as well. While we're at this, because it did a little flashy thing. Yours is still doing it. Let me go to me and I'll continue to talk to you all. But yeah, so essentially the whole channels, the first channel started because we decided to start speaking up during the bad times of 2020. And then we saw the Freedom Convoy was starting, and we decided to try to also start reporting on that. We had some camera equipment and we wanted to also make a difference. But we had no expertise. We still don't have any expertise.
Well, the big thing to know on this first video we ever did was just on our iPhones. And we were meaning to actually be on camera, but we got there and we were way too nervous. We had never been on camera before. So we ended up doing a voiceover at home with some of the B-roll we had. And we should have used actually more of the protests. And I kind of just shot some landscape shots, and that was a lot of it. But what we actually said there was really from the heart. And I think I had to record it like 30 times because I kept stuttering and I was so nervous, even just doing a voiceover. But we did get better over time.
But even with our voices, you can tell that like we didn't know how to project. We didn't know how to speak properly, even not on camera. So that's the beginnings of Nat and the Guy. Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy. Today we were down by the Pacific border crossing here.
Oh,
We'll put it at regular speed because it is our video.
Yeah, I hope. Well, I guess if it dings us, I can say no.
BC, not too far from Vancouver.
And we actually saw a large group of local supporters for the trucker convoy. They've set up and are welcoming anyone who wants to come down.
They have food, water, restrooms, heaters, and some tents set up.
We actually spoke to one of the organizers who said they plan to stay day and night until the mandates are lifted.
They're expecting a large turnout this Saturday, February 12th, but they say anybody's welcome anytime, day or night. And pause it really quick. And it was a very small protest this day because we went during the week and they had a bigger protest on the weekend. Our second video, we went to a much larger protest. But I will say there was a lot of Sikh truck drivers out here that were supplying food for everybody 24 hours a day. So that was a big help to keep a presence on the border 24 hours. But they weren't blocking traffic or anything like that, but it was just a protest on the side of the road. And a lot of the trucks were honking because thousands of trucks drive right past this every day. The border is within eyesight of this location.
Yeah, and this was a Pacific border crossing. There's another one as well.
And there was a constant police presence monitoring everybody that was there on rooftops as well.
In those little shops you see here.
Over these last couple weeks, me, like a lot of others, have been filled with hope that we might get our freedoms back and the coercion may stop. I've been downtown the last 2 Saturdays on Burrard voicing my support for the truckers because I believe if we don't stand up now together as Canadians, that we may never see our freedoms again. I keep hearing and seeing proposed legislation of a new normal that would include a permanent national vaccine passport that Prime Minister Trudeau has earmarked almost $1 billion for. I am not okay with social credit score or any kind of permanent vaccine boosters or mandates. I do think the science has changed and it is time for all mandates to be lifted, like so many other countries have already done. Okay, you can pause it there and then you're going to be up next. But man, it's embarrassing just hearing myself back then.
We sound like children for some
we do
reason.
sound like children.
We weren't like that much younger. That was 2022.
But I still believe all those things. And this was a very important time in Canada. They were stripping freedoms and we didn't know if we were going to get them back. And I didn't know what to do. I was just motivated to do something and these protests were going on. So this is what we did. And then I said, well, let's try to have more of a reach and put this on YouTube because a lot of people weren't actually putting stuff on YouTube from across Canada. They were just doing it from Ontario. I wanted other people to know, come out and support so we can fight for freedoms in every province.
I moved to Canada 11 years ago. The freedom and possibility that was promised has been stripped away in 2 years. Hope has left us all. I have seen the other face of Canadians. It is incredibly sad how...
And that's one of the police officers that's on the rooftop monitoring everybody 24 hours a day at that location. But you sound like a chipmunk here, don't you?
I think I still hadn't found both my voice, but also the settings for the microphone.
Well, and I also think, because if you watch your first videos when you were actually on camera, you put way too much facial, what do you call it, smoothing?
Yeah,
and I think you altered your voice too much here.
I didn't alter my voice. I think that's how I talk when I'm relaxed or when I'm nervous, but...
Okay.
Easily they could turn against each other. But when the convoy started 2 weeks ago, so did a spark of hope. That Canadians were ready to stand up for themselves and each other, and that we could all unite and start unmasking our fears. To see smaller protests start to crop up in each province, and having gone to the recent two in downtown Vancouver, makes me confident that this reaches beyond Ottawa, beyond Parliament Hill, beyond political parties. I'm so encouraged to see that, despite the attitude shift of these past 2 years, there are now Canadians uniting and showing that we won't let bullies scare or divide us. It has been difficult to find protests because of all the efforts to censor them, and I've missed many because I didn't know they were happening. But seeing this little protest on the side of the road today continued to light the spark to keep going. I hope seeing coverage of it can encourage someone else to get up and keep going. As Vancouver artist Brevner said in a song recently, there is more of us than them.
Yeah, and that was our very first video and very nervous doing it. And we were just normal citizens that really didn't want to be on camera, didn't want to do that. But if we didn't do it and other citizens didn't stand with us and we didn't stand with them, I didn't know if they were really they would have kept a lot of the rights away from citizens. They would have never given them back. There was a huge push in Canada. That truckers movement was big in Canada to say no to the government. They were overreaching a lot more than normal governments like in the U.S. and stuff like that.
And a lot of people also didn't know or didn't even believe it. Like people at the time back home in Mexico, where we are now, just didn't believe what I was telling them and the mandates and the measures that the government was taking. And they were saying, yo, you're exaggerating. Justin Trudeau is great. He's so handsome. Don't criticize him. And I was like, you're not living through it.
Well,
so it helped also to be able to have video.
Well, and at the time they had the Biden administration, or I think was it the Biden administration?
It had entered by then.
Yeah, had just entered by then, and you noticed a sharp shift when the Biden administration did enter. Censorship in Canada through social media was huge. It was very, very hard to find out when these protests were. We lived right across from the art gallery at the time, so we can look out our window and we knew when they were going on. And so we were able to get access. But if anybody was looking for these protests online, they were extremely hard to find. The government was censoring very, very heavy at that time.
But then we also went another day. We went quite a few days.
We didn't film them all, but these were the two that first one was the first time we went to the border. And then this one was actually really big. I don't know if the footage is going to portray that or not, but there was thousands of people out there shutting down the highway. It was pretty big, this one.
Yeah, this was February 12th, so just a few days after that first one.
And I didn't really know how to film. Again, this was on an iPhone, and we did a voiceover here again because we were still very nervous.
Yep. Still have the same logo.
Hi, I'm Nat.
And I'm Guy.
This past Saturday, the 12th of February, we went to the Freedom Convoy in BC. It was a bigger protest than the last one we went to that we posted. And it was in solidarity with all the truckers in Ottawa. We thought it was actually going to be pretty small, but it spanned rows and rows and rows of cars and trucks. And it was pretty cool to see so many people gathered there after we saw just a tiny, tiny bit of people that on the Tuesday we went on February 8th. So the images you're going to be seeing are of that gathering, and basically we'll be telling you our thoughts on how that one went.
Yeah, it was at the Pacific border crossing, I believe.
Yes, Pacific border crossing.
It was actually a rather good time. It ended up being nice weather.
Okay, and you can pause it here. We'll fast
amazing
forward a
views out
bit
there.
through this one. But I will say it was very hopeful because that first one we went to was so small, and I didn't know if people were actually going to be able to stand up or information could get out. When we went to this one, there was definitely a transition happening across Canada, and there was massive support, and people figured out how to get around the censorship and let people know where and when to be, so we can kind of push back there.
Do you want me to fast forward?
Yeah, go halfway through, just because.
Halfway?
Just where the police are there. You can go back a little bit. Yeah, here, that's good.
12th and Sunday the 13th that they ended up breaking up the Ambassador Bridge protest. And basically the protesters moved to the side, and some stayed on foot, but the trucks did leave. They made, I believe, 2 arrests from people.
Well, the truckers have already stated they have over 1,000 lawyers, and they have millions of dollars ready to fight anything in court that anybody's arrested for, and that they will surrender peacefully. There will be no resistance, and I think this is what has the government.
And way down there, that's actually the border. We go down there later. I can't remember how much filming of that I put it in the edit, but yeah, these crowds were big. It doesn't look like it here because we got there early, and a lot of the footage we used was the early footage. As it got busier and busier, there were a lot more police there.
Government somewhat baffled. They don't know how to deal with a Gandhi-style peaceful protest, in which this is. Yeah, you're blocking some roads, but that's exactly what Gandhi did back in India. And we know how Trudeau supports the Indian farmers, so why isn't he supporting the working class truckers now, or the rest of the? It's not just truckers. You're seeing medical workers, truckers, farmers, blue-collared workers. You've even seen mariners out there, and a lot of ex-police officers, retired police officers. A huge military movement is within the
and pause it one more time, fast forward it a little bit more. But yeah, from the first protest to the second protest, there was a grassroots swell of more than just truckers, kind of like what I said there. And that's when you knew the tides were kind of shifting. It was all the working class from all across Canada were really coming out in every single province. This was an example within BC, but Alberta was doing the same thing, even more in mass. And then you had the massive protest in Ottawa, which was huge because that was making global news.
And this is when we had already arrived at the actual border crossing, and I think you interview someone.
Yeah, and it says Washington because that's the border with Washington State and BC there.
But today on the Women's March for Indigenous Women and Girls and Two-Spirit People, and I don't know how many other adjectives they've added on to that. They have tore it down. First, they painted it in red, and they tore it down. But
They basically tied a rope around its neck.
And pause
yanked
it
this-
here.
Yeah, this was very nice.
And this was very nice because it was making international news at this point, but not a lot of people were going to the BC border. This ended up being a huge protest, but Americans came out. They weren't able to cross, and the Canadians weren't able to cross. So they waved their American flags on their side, and we had Canadian flags. And it was this solidarity of freedom because even though their freedoms weren't being stripped quite as much as Canadians, the government was overreaching, especially in Washington State. And Biden had just gotten in at this point. So
Well,
you
he's been
can
there for a year.
you could feel there was a transition coming in the States, and he may overreach depending on what happened in Canada. So I still get emotional kind of looking at the Americans coming out because I lived in both countries there.
this thing to the ground. There's photos all over the internet on this, and this is one of the nicest statues in Vancouver. Now I don't know the history on it, but if you're tying a rope around a neck of a statue and tearing it down, and being congratulated by the government, much as Trudeau congratulated the BLM protesters when they were in Canada. I mean, I think
and the
it's
burning of churches.
I think it's time to just
Well, with
swallow
the
your
Gassy-
pride and go talk to these truckers.
Yeah, with the Gassy Jack statue, I mean, the way they're justifying it is that it was believed, not yet confirmed, that he was married to a 12-year-old Indigenous girl, and then she ran away and she became the symbol for other women who want to run away from like difficult relationships.
There's ways to get
Okay,
things
and
done,
you can
and
just
then
fast
there's
forward
ways.
into this
Well, I
one.
want to get to where they sang, because both Canada and the U.S. sang the anthem, and I want to get to that.
Oh yeah, on
point.
both sides of the border,
And
the people
tearing
were
down of
singing
a
that
statue.
anthem.
But now I'm going to have to try to find
That's good there.
About bouncy castles in the same sentence as they talk about violence and terrorism happening in downtown Ottawa.
What do you expect these guys to do if they can't work and everything else later?
And that's the thing. The best thing they could do is just continue, because what's going to piss him off more? And like what's going to make him realize that nothing he's trying to do works is for them to stay peaceful and for them to stay
They did
the
go
way they've been this whole time. But it might come a time where what he's doing is so not grounded
Okay,
in
and you
reality
can-
and in the reality.
Pause it there. And I will say, oh God, I was going to say something there. Oh, because this is how we started the channel, and we were so scared to be on camera, but it was so important, and they were stepping on Canadians' freedoms for so long. So we just kept going and kept going. And that was kind of the origin of how Nat and the guy started. And if it hadn't started under those circumstances, really trying to fight for freedom and seeing government overreach, I don't think I could have gone for as long as we did. I mean, it was hard to grow the channels, especially talking about a lot of the subjects that we talked about, especially on our original channel. It was everything that was being censored under the Biden administration and under the Trudeau administration. Those were the things we were talking about. So it was really hard to get even one subscriber. That's why this past little push we got to get monetization on this channel and seeing so many Albertans kind of support us really brings us back to the roots, because that's really connected to a lot of these border protests during the Jibby Jab era, and now it's continuing to metastasize into this Alberta separatist movement or independence movement. So thank you from us, from everybody that subscribed in Alberta this last weekend. It was a big help to the channel, and that's kind of how this channel started, was something very similar.
You to do so. We need everybody out there voicing their opinions and fighting for freedom, I guess you would say, or standing up for freedom.
Yeah, it's the time of living in fear and in
Okay, you can
both
fast
in
forward
the
it and
fear
try to
that
find it. If you can't, then that's fine.
both-
I think it was, but I don't know. That wasn't it.
It might be at the very end there.
No, at the end it's just cars, rows of cars,
Okay.
and a stormtrooper.
And, that's good. And then after we did those border protests, and we did quite a few more, but I think those were the two main ones we put on the channel. We ended up there was a guy named James Top that did a march across Canada. He was a military soldier that refused to take the jibby jab, and they were trying to kick him out of the military. So in protest, he marched from Vancouver to Ottawa with quite a large contingent of people that he picked up along the way. We started in Vancouver. We interviewed him in Vancouver and walked the first little leg of the journey. And then we had to work, so we went back home, and then we caught up with him a couple days later in Hope. We drove a couple hours just to interview him. Why don't we show the first one of those videos?
Yes. So this one is in downtown Vancouver. And again, it was called Canada Marches with James Top. And this was just, February 20th. So these are all like pretty much consecutive. How did I wake up at that time?
This was like at 2 in the morning.
6 a.m. 600. That's the BC Stadium. That's Terry Fox, who also ran across Canada.
And pause it there. Yeah, I woke up at 2. I went out there early, and then I think you came after, but nobody was there, and I was able to get B-roll footage, and that's what I used for this beginning here. And I really didn't know if anybody was going to turn up. James Top ended up turning up, and then there was a First Nations contingent of people that kind of wished him a good journey on his way.
Yeah. We were trying to be artistic with it.
Okay, and you can fast forward a bit.
That's the contingent that went to wish him.
So we're here to represent those people. We're also here to support this young man that's going to go walk all the way to Ottawa.
And you fast forward to where James stops talking.
Remember 1990,
Quite a bit.
we're at a place called the East Village in Winnipeg. If you fall in battle, they can identify you. And that's one of the reasons why I'm going to where I'm going.
Yeah, and this is the gentleman, James Top, that walked across Canada. He slowly got more and more media coverage. Eventually, Pierre Poilievre got behind him and got behind this movement, but it took a really long time. Politicians were kind of scared to touch this issue at the time.
And he did make it to Ottawa.
Oh, he did make it to Ottawa. And when he finally got to Ottawa, there was tens of thousands of people in the street. It was very, very heartwarming, especially because we started the first leg of the journey with him. And we didn't really know if he was going to make it. He was quite old at the time.
To pay my respects to the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. That's somebody, that's a Canadian that we don't know, who heard the call and went to do his duty. Was killed in the line
And
of
you
duty.
can fast forward just
remains,
how...
Ottawa.
Yeah, yeah.
Get to that.
Yeah. Keep going. There you go.
Here. When they started to walk.
Yeah, when we started to walk. So yeah, this was the first leg. Pause it. This is the first leg of the journey we did with him, and we started to walk through downtown Vancouver and outside the city into the more rural areas, and then he continued on across BC. This is actually right by the Skid Row area of downtown Vancouver by Hastings. And pause it. And it was very good that he had a First Nations contingent there because they were trying to frame him as a racist before the march even started. So he had a lot of coverage from the Indigenous community, which actually helped him much later on. It was very hard for the mainstream media to frame him like they were trying to frame him as a white supremacist.
But they kept trying.
Yeah, they kept trying. Okay, and we can just go to the very last video, and this is where I finally got on camera for the first time, and I did an
kind of forced
interview.
it.
I was extremely nervous doing here, and you can see me with the microphone not knowing how to hold it. You can play the beginning, and then we'll just fast forward through it, and this is the last video we'll show of our original content.
I never considered myself to be any kind of great leader, but any leader knows that they got to lead by example. They got to lead by the front.
Weird.
That's a mountain man.
I think I'm still not on camera. This whole video.
Pause it. And all this footage was us driving up to Hope. It was quite a long drive for us to catch back up to him.
It's a little town called Hope, BC.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
And he actually was from Hope. So he drove into Vancouver, walked from Vancouver back to Hope, rested for a day, and then continued the journey across Canada.
Yeah. I had a Mini Cooper, so that was our shooting car.
And pause it there. And you can fast forward a bit till I interview him. That was the Winnebago. They drove across Canada, and they had food and medical supplies that they would follow the march with. So it was a completely organic march. There was no real money behind it. He was taking donations. Those donations got him across Canada, but it was not like he had grade A accommodations there. Hi, we're here in Agassiz. I'm here with James Top.
Morning.
So how's the journey going so far?
Better than I expected, and there was a lot I hadn't expected, but the amount of support and encouragement I've got has really carried me through a lot of turbulence, if you will. It really means a lot to me seeing people on the road waving and stopping to say hi and come shake my hand and stuff.
Not smiling.
A lot of people come by and they say, thank you for doing this, and really, I have to thank them, right? Like, I mean, for stopping and giving me that encouragement. And it's hard for me to put into words like what that means to me.
Well, I think you're a huge inspiration to all of Canada. I mean, I went out the first day when you left Vancouver, and man, it was really something to see. And we got a huge response off our first video we made. So we said, well, before you leave BC, we want to see you one more time.
Yeah.
What are you expecting for the rest of the journey here?
I think we face some significant challenges going through the Crow's Nest Pass on Highway 3. So for anybody watching and who want to know that part of the route, we are going to take Highway 3 from Hope to Princeton.
And you can just fast forward to the end. But it was extremely cold that day. I mean, it was freezing outside. I remember it was hard to just stand there and interview. Once I started walking, because I walked a little bit more of the journey with him again, I did warm up and it was fine then. But just standing there waiting for him, because this is when he started it in the morning. Okay, that's good. And from there, he ended up going to Hope. It was a short journey from there to Hope, and then from there across Canada. And they did, people were giving updates along the way. So I kept following them along the journey. And
that's us leaving them behind. Because we did have to work as well. But I mean, I would have went with them.
Yeah, we were talking about I wanted to go with them, but we were also talking about we might need to leave Canada. So at that time, I started working 2 jobs, and then eventually I got 4 jobs, and we had to save for 4 years so we could move to Mexico because I just didn't know what was going to happen in Canada. And Canada to this day continues to go in the wrong direction. I mean, other than Alberta, I don't see a lot of hope in Canada.
No. And for those of you that don't know why we're in Mexico, I am Mexican. I went to study in Vancouver, and then I stayed and built a life, and then I saw that life was going to be impossible. So we eventually decided to just go back for me to move back to Mexico, and you come with me.
Yeah, and that all those videos were from our original channel, which ended up we had to transition it to a Spanish channel when we first moved to Mexico. I mean, we were literally getting 1 or 2 views per video. It was only pushing it out to a Spanish audience. I didn't know what we were going to do. I was like, okay, just try a video in Spanish. And man, it caught fire.
Because we went to CPAC, Mexico. We went to CPAC, Mexico 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
2 years ago. And that was in Spanish, obviously. And you interviewed Robert Malone as well, which was really cool. And we interviewed a few more people there. Nobody knew who we were. But then we started kind of covering more Spanish things, and then I kind of said, well, might as well just make this a Spanish
Well,
one.
it wasn't might as well. It was the only things that videos were getting viewed were the Spanish videos. We ended up getting 11,000 subscribers on that channel. We're going to start implementing more time into that channel.
Yes.
But I was like, man, I need to do something because that channel was all Spanish. We tried to start the English channel, and man, it took a long time to get to this 1,000 subscribers. Trying to get to 1,000 subscribers in English when you live in Canada or the United States is a lot easier than when you live in a non-English speaking country. So we really do appreciate every single person that subscribed and helped us get to where we're at today.
And we're glad that our videos finally found you, because we were trying to like find the audience. But again, because we're publishing from Mexico, it was first sending it out to a Mexican audience who most of them didn't really care or understand or want to watch it. And then it would try kind of spread it out a bit more. But now I think we've kind of finally found you all.
Yeah. Okay.
I won't read your comments for now.
And don't forget about Ethel over on RUMBLE.
Yes, although
If they're there.
right now there's nothing there.
Oh, okay.
But I'll double check again. Joe Montana, also thank you to Joe Montana, because he has been also here from a while ago, says, congrats, I knew you guys could do it. How long did it take you to get 1,000? And thank you so much.
Took a long time.
Well,
for the English channel.
Took a year. It's been a year and 3 months since we opened the English channel.
A year and 3 months, but that is quite a long time. The Spanish channel grew exponentially once we started doing it in Spanish.
But then again, I mean, that channel was 4 years old. It's now 4 years old as
Yeah,
well.
so we've been doing this for maybe 4 or 5 years now.
Yeah, its anniversary, I think, is like February 8th when that first video was published, because I just got a notification of congrats on 4 years from YouTube.
Yeah, and I put Mexican flags on there, as well as the Alberta separatist movement or the Alberta flag on the cover today, just because that's kind of the base that got us to that first 1,000 subscribers. And thank you for everybody that lived outside of those regions, but those were the regions we kind of focused on right now.
And Lyle Norman says, congrats on your 1,000 subscribers. Thank you so much. And thank you for being here as well. And also says, I drove across Canada many times trucking, and my hat off to that man who walked it. Yeah.
Yeah, he was really an inspiration, because there was the trucker protest going on, but nobody was really standing up directly against the jibby jabs. And that's what he was kind of sticking up against. And it was really hard for him to get media coverage, and it was good on him for doing it. And I was just, thank God by the end, there were so many people that supported him, started walking with him. And when he finally got to Ottawa, it was a sight to be seen. You asked what happened to him after that march. Yep. So I looked it up because I actually didn't know. And I said, well, that might be a good interview if we try to contact him. But he ended up, the Canadian military didn't back down on him. Yeah. He ended up getting a $4,000 fine for wearing his uniform on a YouTube video where he kind of protested walking across Canada, as well as they ended up discharging him from the military and giving him a very severe reprimand on top of that. So the protest didn't help as far as his punishment, but it did help inspire Canadians all across Canada, including us.
Yeah, and especially at that time.
Yeah.
And Trent Brick says, hi, hello, thank you for being here. And then for some reason, Malanois, that's all I can say, I think, Chelsea Clinton 2028. I don't know how much she'll be liked after her parents continue down the path they're going down.
Well, if there's going to be a first female president of the United States, I think the best chance might be Ivanka Trump, but...
And then Trent Briggs says Candace Owens 2028. So we're just getting a bunch of different potential candidates, but she'd also be with the Democrats because she clearly is.
Well, I don't know.
Yes.
But yeah. Okay.
And Trent Briggs says, rumor is Charlie took down wedding photo after major fight. I tend to believe more that probably Erika took it so she could have it closer to her, but that's just me.
I used to be a big Candace Owens supporter, and I say this every time I preface it with this. I followed her down every rabbit hole. I was firmly on her side every show we did, and when we reported on her, I was in the Candace Owens camp. I've come off of that, and there's just been nothing there, but... let's go
and it's embarrassing too. But before we go on to Candace Owens, I will say once again, since it's like the 1,000 subscriber celebration, if you have any questions, anything to do with how we started, why we started, YouTube, etc., let us know and we'll answer it after the Candace Owens section.
Yeah, well, at the end of each section, we're going to go into different countries, different topics. We tend to answer any questions.
Yes. Oh, hold on. Lyle Norman says, I just signed up to be a canvasser for the independence petition here in Alberta.
Fantastic.
Good.
And
I mean, I wish I could.
And a lot of people, I don't know if they watch the YouTuber Marty Up North, but he does a lot of streams with Clyde Do Something, but he's just an regular Canadian citizen. I think he's a good example of like a small YouTuber that is just going out to the side of the road. And he says, I get 40 to 50 signatures a day when I go out there. He goes out there twice a week. And it's a good example. If you do live in Alberta, every little bit does help. They're supposed to have like anywhere between 10 and 50,000 canvassers. And if each one gets 50 every time they go out, it's going to be amazing.
And again, as we saw from that first video when we went out, it was a very small protest. Nobody was there. And then we went back a few days later and the streets were closed and people were singing the national anthem and the American national anthem. And there was just rows and like a sea of people. So again, even if it might feel like it's just you or a few people, I think it's a lot more than you usually expect.
Well, and they're going to roll out the propaganda against you guys in Alberta and Saskatchewan, and just don't let it phase you. It's not real. This is the Canadian mainstream media machine. Billions of dollars go into this thing, and just judging by the reactions we get from our Alberta independence videos, man, there is a lot of grassroots support. When I talk to all my friends that are still in Canada, some live in Alberta. I mean, there is a real movement there. Don't believe what they're telling you, especially when they're starting to give out fake polls. They're just starting to ramp up the propaganda now.
And so we will continue to release videos about it as well.
Yeah.
And also about the tactics, because I think they're gonna get a lot worse, especially if there is a snap election. And he will probably run on keeping Canada together.
Yeah, over the next probably 6 months or until the vote happens in Alberta, and probably a little bit after, that will be the main focus for edited videos for this channel. Our live streams, that which we do 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, will focus on geopolitics and just kind of glaze over what's going on in Alberta and Canada in the Canadian section.
And Lyle Norman also says, we will get our independence. I believe it with all my heart.
Yeah, I really, really hope so. And we're a big supporter on this channel. The other day, we've done this for a long time and we don't get paid anything. We just reached the monetization of 1,000. So we'll make a tiny bit of money now. But you were saying the other day, I think I forgot what video it was, maybe Jeffrey Rath. You're saying, man, this kind of sounds like propaganda because I'm so in support of the Alberta separatist movement because of what the Canadian government not only did to us, but all Canadians. I don't care what it sounds like. These are my true and honest opinions.
And for me, for like at the beginning, when we were talking about this since last year, or even before that, when we did lives, and I would always say, well, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't see much support behind it. But now I said it in one of other videos as well, I do see way more possibility of this actually becoming something.
Yeah, and I don't care what the Canadian government does. I think they're going to do something underhanded at the end, even if the Albertans get the vote. That's why it's so important to do it now while Trump's in office, because he's going to back that vote and he's going to say, we're going to recognize the vote. Alberta's independent. But if they can make the negotiations kind of drag out until Trump's out of office, it's going to be a lot harder. I expect underhanded tricks from Carney. Even if you vote to separate and Carney steps up and does something crazy and doesn't allow the separation to happen, at least the world's going to see the corruption of the Canadian government again, just like what happened with the trucker protest. It was the largest independent peaceful protest that had happened in modern history, and it was replicated around the world. So it's time for Alberta and Canadians to show them how it's done again.
Okay, now we don't have any more comments. Again, I will read any questions you have at the end of this section, but let's move on to another topic we apparently always cover in this channel and part of personality politics, which is Candace Owens, because now she's come up with an even more ridiculous, in my opinion at least, statement about Erika Kirk.
Yeah, we usually lead off with personality politics, so we can avoid censorship on harder subjects. So yeah, let's get into personality politics.
So Eyal Jacobi says, Candace Owens has now accused Erika Kirk of grooming a 15-year-old girl. I have no words.
Okay, let's just play the video here.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was following Candace for a long time. I was backing her. I still watch all the episodes, but it's just insane the things she's saying now. She doesn't have any real evidence. She says she's going to do an expose, so I hope to God she has something, because right now she's making accusations without any hard evidence.
Now, we had received a large influx of emails because Baron Coleman had a bit of a viral episode regarding a seemingly weird relationship that Erika had with a then 15-year-old girl named Jillian. Erika was 25 years old at the time, and they developed a relationship that some people believe amounted to a type of grooming. Now, we had received a...
Yeah, and then she went on for the whole... that was from yesterday's episode, I believe, or the day... Yeah, yesterday. But she was in pageants, and she was... you would typically mentor people that are going to get into the pageant industry as well, so...
Well, and myself, as someone that did competitive dancing, I did competitive ballet, and I was in a lot of different... I was a girl guide in Canada, etc., etc., etc. I understand I don't know if most women, but at least most women that have been in sports or have been in any kind of organization that encompasses mostly girls or mentorship, you know the kinds of messages that she was sending. It is not salacious. I just think Candace Owens doesn't have any friends and never has had that kind of mentorship relationship because it is very common. It is none of the messages seemed out of bounds at all, and it seemed very similar to anything I would have received from a dance teacher or from any other kind of mentorship relationship.
Well, and she never met up with the girl again. She would just text her and give her support and help her out and recommend like how to do certain things. So I didn't see anything wrong with the relationship. That being said, she's trying to go down this path. There's rumors surrounding Erika Kirk and what she was doing in Ukraine a decade ago. So I think she's going to try to go on that path. Candace is taking the next week off, saying she's going to do a full...
because she's running out of things to do, a full expose on Erika Kirk.
Yeah.
Because now that's the main target. And I think that has always been the main target because I continue with my theory that Candace is just jealous of Erika and of what Charlie built.
And if she has something, then I'm more than willing to listen to it. But at this point, I followed her for long enough and there's been nothing there. And she's trying to say, like, well, actually, let's go into the next clip here.
Well, but I will also say, because this the next clip doesn't have to do anything to do with what we're talking about, but I will also say that because I forgot what I was saying. Go watch at Lisa Knows on TikTok, I believe, but now it's all over X as well. She kind of goes further into all the messages that Candace alleges she has. What this girl that Candace is saying was groomed by Erika Kirk, her background and what was actually happening. It seems like she didn't have a very good family life. She was struggling a lot with different kinds of mental health issues as well. And Erika was trying to be there and be that mentorship person.
But she's making accusations that they were in a huge fight. That's why this picture was taken down. Pictures get
she and Charlie.
Yeah, pictures get misplaced all the time or moved around all the time, especially when you're as rich as they are. I'm sure they have a maid. They may have moved the picture, cleaned. I mean, any number of things could happen. For her to jump to this conclusion that there was this huge fight the night before and the next day that Charlie was going to ask Candace Owens to be part of TPUSA again. It's almost like she's jealous of Erika making up this fight in her head, almost like Charlie's going to ask her back. Okay, let's go into the next little clip here. And then...
Yes. From Cinema Shogun, quote, Candace Owens says there will be a revolution in this country if Tyler Robinson is found guilty. So now she's full on defending the alleged assassin of Charlie Kirk. Apparently, she's preparing her cult to literally revolt against government in defense of Tyler Robinson. Now, of course, normal people won't pay this any mind at all. When Tyler Robinson is found guilty, they will just go about their day. But Candace has curated an audience of unstable, gullible, and straight up mentally ill wine moms.
No, and I'm more than open to the fact that, yeah, maybe there's something else there, but none of this evidence is going to be released to the trial. The trial hasn't started yet. Therefore, they're going to keep a lot of these cards close to their chest, but there has to be a ton of evidence for them to have brought these charges. She's saying there's going to be a revolution if he's found guilty. Well, let's see what the evidence is first. I mean, you presented all your evidence. I was with you like almost up to just about a month ago, and I've come to the conclusion that you've really shown me nothing, Candace, and now I'm wanting to see what they have at the actual trial here.
I mean, it'll be, if he is found guilty, it'll be the Candace crazy wine moms and then all of the trans lobby community as well. So that's the kind of audience she's fostering, apparently.
And stick this on Tyler Robinson. This is actually a critical case, by the way. Tyler Robinson's case is critical because it's the final thing before we need to revolt. If we just find out that they can do this, not a shred of evidence have they produced to tie this to Tyler Robinson. Nothing. And I told you when I sat down with Erika, they didn't have anything. They weren't hiding anything. People that were telling you that, there's no, there was nothing. They didn't have more than what was told to the public. If they can just stick this on to a random kid, we got problems. Like, lots of problems. So this is the final thing. If the legal system is also just a joke, I mean, I guess you would say my lawsuit with Brigitte is the same thing, and they're just using it to go after certain people and to protect certain people, which we kind of know that. Like, we don't know what we know. I think it's going to get ugly in this country. I do. I hope not. I hope I'm wrong. But I think it is. I think that's where we're headed.
And this is almost like what she did with Bad Bunny. She was giving cover to Bad Bunny when she was talking about the Super Bowl and comparing that to TPUSA because she just had so much jealousy for what TPUSA did. Not to say that halftime show was the greatest in the world, but it was proof of concept and it was an alternative that families could watch without seeing the LGBTQ community grind on the 50-yard line with the Bad Bunny halftime show.
But I mean, that fully sounds like a threat. And I will say, if you're still a supporter of Candace, I think that says more about you than even about Candace or anybody else.
I wouldn't say that because I'm not a supporter of Candace anymore, but I still watch her every day. And
Yeah, but you don't support what she's saying. You watch her to go against
But
it.
I did support her for so long, and a lot of people said that when I was watching her. So I let it play out, and I didn't think there was anything there. She's saying they have no evidence that they're presenting against Tyler Robinson. The fact is, she's had no real evidence to this point. It's been empty rabbit hole after empty rabbit hole. I'm willing to wait to judge Tyler Robinson until the case actually happens. The government does know everybody's going to be watching that with a fine-tooth comb. So if there is any holes in the case, it's going to come out during that trial. I'm definitely going to be watching it. So. And you can play the last clip here of Candace before we go into geopolitics.
Yes. Eyal Jacobi says, Candace Owens announces that she will be taking a week off to launch a Becoming Brigitte-like series on Erika Kirk, and then says to Megyn Kelly, it's never too late to find your conscience. And to everybody else, I will say the same. Again, the grift continues because she's running out of things to actually produce because there's nothing there. There's no there.
Obviously, like I said, is our last episode before we take a week off air, pulling things together for our Erika Kirk biographical series. Working title, Fatal Attraction. I'm kidding. Maybe I'm kidding. We don't know.
Her.
Speaking of, obviously, like I said, is...
Yeah, and I had always suspected that she had worked through with MI6 through her husband. Her husband has massive connections to intelligence agencies in the UK. So I had kind of pegged that right from the beginning. And I always thought that if she's working for an intelligence agency, they must have something and they're going to funnel something out through her. They just haven't done it to this point. Maybe this is the point with the expose they are, or maybe she just needs a week off because there's way too much heat on her right now. But you would think if she takes a week off, she would transition to another topic, but it looks like she's literally tripling down on this one when she comes back. People are going to be expecting something in this series.
And as she has continued to do, I think she will just invent more and more new things to put in it. Trembrig says Erika is going to sue Candace. I mean, again, they already sent the cease and desist, and I think they're just waiting. And now maybe with this new series and biographical she's doing on Erika Kirk, they're just going to gather more and more stuff to actually, when they do sue, because I'd be surprised if they don't, or if she doesn't, to actually go even harder against her.
Well, I was never a big fan of Erika, but this whole thing with Candace, like I was firmly on Candace's side, and I've slowly come over to Erika's side. I still find her off-putting because it's so much pageantry, and it just comes off as fake. But even that being said, I have a lot more sympathy for Erika. The fact that she hasn't sued Candace yet. I mean, she's given a lot of leeway to these sleuth journalists that want to do these investigations. I think she wants people to investigate so it can just clear itself on its own, and then they can move on with the midterms, which is their actual mission. They're the election arm of the Conservative Party now. They're the ones reaching out to the youth. So they don't want to be seen as somebody that's suing all these social media influencers, but it may come down to that now.
And again, I also have a lot of respect for Erika for tolerating all of this right after her husband was assassinated and being painted in such light with literally zero evidence, concocted evidence, and evidence that you just grab the things that are convenient and then leave everything else behind. But luckily, there's other people online that are putting all the rest of the receipts that Candace omits, especially now with this whole 15-year-old quasi relationship she's saying that Erika had, which is just not true.
I also think Charlie was a great leader of TPUSA, and I understand why Erika's kind of taking over, but I think she would work better behind the scenes, not to be a public figure. If they need a face of TPUSA, they need to find somebody else. They need to focus on their core, which is elections, the youth, and debates. And debates may be hard to do in public, how Charlie did it, but there's a huge space online. There's a huge community. If they just invest a little bit of money in that, that community could become huge, and they could open up a dialogue between the left and the right, which I think would be much needed right before the midterms.
And Trent Briggs says, but I do think Erika went after Charlie for things other than love. I don't think so. I mean, she had a lot of money beforehand anyways.
Yeah, so. I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. I did find her off-putting. I'm not one of these people that was all TPUSA, all Erika Kirk. I did like Charlie Kirk. I did like his clips on his debates. I did like the fact that he was able to make this election machine that really propelled Donald Trump into the White House and really changed the neocons into this new populist movement that's now going against the neocons and kind of reforming what conservatism was. I think he was the heart and soul of that organization. It's going to be really hard to continue without him. I think they do need to find somebody else for the face of the organization. And I would like Erika Kirk just to take a step back and do things from behind the scenes. But that's my opinion. Not everybody feels like that.
Yeah, I think she could continue being the face of it. I just don't know how convenient it is for her in terms of her life and the children and etc., especially once they get older and start asking more and more questions, which unfortunately she'll have to answer. Okay, let's move on to health and MAHA and education, because you always tell me to add education in there.
But the greatest danger of all would be to do nothing.
And the first story I don't even know if I can say the words in this first story, but let's go to it because it's weird. From Valerie Ann Smith, quote, edible jibby jabs? Yes, it's real and you're paying for it. Congressman Thomas Massie says they're using your taxpayer dollars to fund mRNA jibby jabs grown in lettuce and spinach. Eat your salad, get jibby jabbed.
Yeah, and I knew about this for a while now, but now it's coming back up. So I just wanted to kind of refresh everybody about this. I almost put this on RU and BLE. This is the kind of story that could get us dinged, but let's go into it. And good on Thomas Massie for bringing this back up. Oh, no sound.
I think it's in the clip. I think the clip has no.
No, the clip has sound because I was watching it earlier. Play the next clip.
Let me try like this. No, there's no sound in this one either.
Check if the road's hooked up.
Use a roadcaster, yeah. Sorry, today is the day of...
okay, try it again.
No, because we were able to hear the YouTube ones.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to turn it off and on.
So we'll have no sound for a bit. Tough.
Yeah, I know. It takes a minute to shut down.
So you gotta wait.
Okay. Sorry for the technical issues there, but I will talk about these
Been a while since
edible
we had
jibby
these
jabs. They also have ones they want to release in the air. They're studying that technology as well. It's just crazy. They can't have people willingly get these things. They're trying to do it secretively now. It's a little bit insane.
Yeah, it works now. Sorry about that.
In the Ag Approach bill, I tried to defund research for transgenic edible plant vaccines. And it sounds kind of scary, but it is scary. We are actually funding with taxpayer dollars research on vaccines to be grown in lettuce and spinach so that when people eat their lettuce and spinach, they will get vaccinated with whatever vaccine that plant is producing. I don't think we need to be playing God with our spinach. And if somebody wants to do that, there probably needs to be tighter rules on it because pollen can escape and pollute plants in neighboring farms who never intended to be growing vaccines in their food. So I tried to put some rules on that in the Ag Appropriations bill, and I was able to stop taxpayer dollar spending in that Ag Appropriations bill, but they threw that bill in the trash and did an omnibus instead. So guess what? Now you got another year of transgenic edible plant vaccine research.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And it's very interesting. You know they're going to want to put it in meats as well. I can see how they could put it in fake meat. And now in Canada especially, they don't have to label when it's fake meat. So you don't even know if you're buying real or fake meat other than the fact that you need to discern it. I'm sure they can put some jibby jabs in fake meat. It's much harder to put it in real meat. And why? Because when anything that goes through the animal system, a lot of it's going to get fed out through the organs.
Yeah, processed out. But they've also talked, and they thought that it might be a good idea to start making people allergic to red meat because of climate change. And we've also shown that clip before. But it's insane that they're doing it without most people being aware of it. And luckily, I guess I don't eat that many vegetables or spinach or lettuce because I don't like it.
Well, and people are turning against jibby jabs en masse, not just in the United States and Canada, but globally. We showed a story last week about that jibby jabs on a global decline. That's why research like this, where people are going to maybe be forced to take it unwillingly or unknowingly, I think is going to become much more prevalent in the future if these trends continue.
It's the unknowingly.
And we never got a jibby jab, so.
No. I was able to resist. I did get a fine for it from
$7,000.
Yeah. From Wall Street Apes, quote, a Somali man named Mohammed Jama ran an NGO in Minnesota taking Medicaid payments. He was billing Medicaid $12,630 per month per person for care that was never given. He even stopped paying rent for patients, and they're being evicted onto the street.
Okay, and we can just play the clip here, but this is at the ground level what this corruption is bringing. This woman's getting evicted from her home. Her home was supposed to be taken care of by the person that was actually pocketing the money.
Minnesota's fraud crisis came knocking.
We're here for the eviction.
Janelle Hansen, she goes by Sky, lived in a Minnetonka apartment
What?
when sheriff's deputies arrived,
I'm scared.
armed with an eviction order for Jane or John Doe.
I'm not Jane or John Doe. That's what's confusing.
Sky lived here as part of a Medicaid program called Integrated Community Supports, or ICS. It's designed to help adults with disabilities live independently in their own apartment with one-to-one daily assistance. She was ordered to pack up what she could carry
Grab what you've just packed because we need to exit the apartment now.
and get out.
No, we need to go. Come on.
Okay.
We need to go.
How are you?
Go.
Okay, how are
Set
you?
out to the hallway.
And like that, a vulnerable young woman put on the street.
Bye, house. Bye, house. Goodbye.
How could this have happened?
And that's also the thing. It's everybody's, and all the people, anti-ICE protesters are all saying, oh, we have to protect everybody that is essentially committing this fraud. But let's also think of those that were being taken in by all of these frauds and schemes and think of them. Who's defending them? Who's speaking up about them? Who's going out there and protesting for those that did get roped into the scam unwittingly, unknowingly, or even being able to process it properly.
And this isn't just happening in Minnesota. This is Medicare fraud and daycare fraud that's going on across a lot of states. California is the next one that's going to be dug into here. And that's kind of already started by not only sleuth journalists, but by the IRS itself. So
our investigation finds it's tied to the allegations of Medicaid fraud now rocking Minnesota.
We've documented Sky's life of homelessness for the past 8 months, living out of her car, tents, shelters, and cheap hotels.
I think I just got kicked out of the hotels for being too autistic.
Her former caregivers, American Home Healthcare LLC, are under investigation for fraud. They were billing Sky's Medicaid $421 per day, claiming they always provided 12 hours of service.
Most days was like 2 hours, maybe 1 or 2 hours.
Under investigation, the company and its owner, Jama Mohammed, stopped paying rent.
Okay, let's go. Come on. We go. Push this.
So Sky got evicted. Just one of the vulnerable people paying the price through no fault of their own for Minnesota's fraud crisis. Thrown onto the street, homeless.
They say that your home is in your heart.
Yeah, and I just wanted to kind of show more of an emotional story of how this fraud is affecting regular Americans. A lot of people think these people are just stealing from the government, putting it into their pockets, and there's nobody actually getting hurt. But that's not the case. And a lot of times it is the case because there's such large sums of money being stolen. But there's those other cases like this where there's actual Americans that are vulnerable that are being hurt by this.
And again, where are the protesters for them? Where are the people sparked in outrage saying, oh, this is not fair to them, we should protect them, especially because, I mean, she was part of the mental health community as well, which is usually, I mean, most of them are there too.
Yeah.
But another thing from Jen Jakalik says, quote, every single NIH, National Institutes of Health employee had to write a loyalty oath to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion principles. Dr. Jay Bhattacharya reveals that the woke ideology infected science over the past 20 years.
Yeah, and this just shows how science has been absolutely corrupted at its root and why people aren't trusting science anymore and people aren't trusting the healthcare system like they used to.
Politicization of science, because this is something, you know, we've talked about numerous times in the past, and you're saying that's actually changed. I'm not sure everyone understands or necessarily even believes that. What's changed?
Yeah, so over, let's say, the last 15, 20 years, the NIH sort of incorporated into its agenda things I can only characterize as political agendas rather than scientific agendas. Probably the most prominent example of this is DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Right. So a chunk of the NIH portfolio went to projects that were focused on achieving some social objective rather than the health mission which we actually have. Every single NIH employee had to write some, I can only call it a loyalty oath, to DEI principles. And they were sometimes evaluated on the basis of their sort of sufficient devotion to the cause. If you were, the NIH funds both research inside the NIH and then outside the NIH. If you're a researcher outside the NIH, the ticket to getting sort of extra, relatively easy funds was to promise to do DEI research. And you know, in looking at it, Jan, much of that research had no real scientific basis at all. I don't even characterize it as science, right? So I'll give you an example of the kind of things that we've worked very hard to deprioritize within the NIH. Consider a project that says we're going to look at, we're going to ask the question, structural racism is the root reason why African Americans have worse hypertension results or something, right? That's hypothesis. The problem with that hypothesis is that there's no way to test it. If structural racism is the cause, then what control group can you have to test the idea that it's true? And even worse than that is that none of that actually translated over to better health for anybody, much less for African Americans. Those are political agendas. That
okay, and you can leave it there. And yeah, not only science, general science in the real world, but in academia, it was absolutely corrupted to its core, and almost all Western societies at this point.
And we're also seeing it with, I mean, in connecting it to our next topic, which is remigration, we're also seeing it with all the anti-ICE sentiment. We've seen nurses saying, oh, I'm going to do this and that if I ever see an ICE officer. I'm going to, you know, put something in them without them knowing because I know how to make people go to sleep. That kind of stuff is also because of the environment that has been created around the medical field in general. And I mean, don't get me into the alphabet community and what's going on with minors, the mutilation of minors, et cetera, But I will also say Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was one of the integral parts of those people that were speaking up against the jibby jabs and everything that we were also fighting against in Canada.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first, you know, few that was able to speak up and got a lot of repercussions for it.
If we have any comments, we'll read the comments and then we'll go into remigration. We have a lot of stories in remigration, so we'll try to fire through them fairly quickly.
And Lyle Norman says, I feel for people in Canada. Thank God my granddad taught me to raise animals. Country living is the way to live.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be a remigration from cities to countries or rural areas where people actually have land, can grow some of their own food, raise children. I mean, it's a much different lifestyle than in the city.
And I think it brings you back closer to values that have been enshrined in the West for the longest time, but most people have forgotten them now because they've been trapped in cities for their whole lives.
And it's much easier to propagandize a city because you have a condensed area with a lot of people. Yeah.
But let's move on to remigration, speaking of cities.
The immigration policies in Europe are a disaster. You're destroying Europe. You're destroying the culture of Europe.
And the first story in Remigration is Pocahontas. From Lives of TikTok, quote, Democrat Elizabeth Warren is now saying that she wants to defund ICE, and they've been saying this for a while, and now the government might shut down because of it.
Well, and then I just remember the Summer of Love with BLM where it was defund the police. Now it's defund ICE. You can't get these Democrats to say defund the police again because the general American public has completely gone against that. This seems like the same a bad idea, just repackaged in a different bow.
So what are you giving a speech on right now?
Well, I'm going to talk about ICE funding. I think we ought to stop doing it. So that's what I'm talking about.
So what are you giving a speech?
Term limits, people. Term limits. I mean,
Yeah, and I just kind of wanted to show that to compare and contrast that idea with the idea they had during the Summer of Love, which was defund the police. I think as we come up on the new Summer of Love, which is going to be this summer because the midterms are right after that, this defund ICE is going to be their new slogan.
Yeah, I know what he is. I mean, a lot of people have been showing up anti-ICE, stop ICE, F ICE, and defund ICE. But speaking of ICE and of the Summer of Love as well, there's another intersecting story here because we saw an insane woman doing what they were doing during those protests too. Marian Outfall says, quote, woman arrested for allegedly trying to burn down a Kansas warehouse after hearing rumors the owner was selling it to ICE to use as a detention center. And I haven't fully verified it, but it seems like the sale never actually went through. And she just burned some random building because of the misinformation, literally. This one doesn't have sound. Like, how unhinged do you have to be? Like, I hope they make her pay.
Hey,
she probably has no money, but I mean, insurance. Yeah, I know.
That's good. You can leave it there. Pay. They need to do a lot more than make her pay. They need to throw her in jail for a long, long time for this one. If there's any extra charges they can kind of throw on top, terroristic charges or anything like that, they need to put them here. They need to make an example out of her. This is going a step too far with what it would be a normal arson. And arson, especially if nobody gets hurt, typically doesn't get a lot of time. So.
I mean, make examples out of all of them is what I say.
But if they can prove through her emails this was directed because she thought it was an ICE facility, it could be considered a terrorist attack or something like that. And usually I'm actually against those kind of charges. In this kind of case, I don't think so.
But continuing with, in the U.S. at least, from Nick Sortor, quote, Holy Seed, a witness testified under oath to Senator Hawley that over $60 million in dark money has already flowed to funding the Minnesota riots. This funding is coming from 14 groups per Seamus Bruner. Quote, over 60 million, just according to the latest 990 disclosures, 60 million, at least 14 different groups.
Well, yeah, and we talked about this when the Minnesota protests were kind of going on, that there's NGO money coming into this thing. Now they actually did an investigation and they're seeing where the money's coming from. So they can actually do something here now.
In following nonprofit funding and organizational networks. So based on your research, what organizations have been active on the ground in Minnesota? What can you tell us?
Yes, we have tracked over $60 million, according to the latest 990 disclosures, to approximately 14 groups, some of them national, others on the ground. Groups like the ACLU provide the legal defense, as well as facilitate the trainings for some of the tactics that Senator Corrin just described. A group named Democracy Forward. Take Action Minnesota has gotten over $10 million from these large NGO networks, including the Neville Roy Singham Network, Indivisible, National Lawyers Guild, CTUL, the Council on American Islamic Relations Minnesota, CARE, Minnesota 350, Voices for Racial Justice, on and on. Like I said, over $60 million just according to the latest 990 disclosures.
$60 million, at least 14 different groups. That sounds like a pretty broad ecosystem here. Where's this money coming from? I mean, how's it flowing to these groups? Do you have any sense?
So we've built a database that contains hundreds of thousands of rows from grants from networks like the Soros Network, the Arabella Funding Network, as mentioned, the Neville Roy Singham Funding Network, many others, Tides, the Ford Foundation Network, the Rockefeller Funding Network, these massive NGOs that have billions of dollars to spend on.
And all the networks he's kind of giving out there are globalist networks or have this global ideology they want to press into the United States. That's why they want open borders.
But also to destabilize the United States.
Well, yeah, and Canada really needs to pay attention to this because that network is far more insidious and far better hidden. I mean, it goes all the way into their government, all the way through their legislation. The reason they can't access a lot of the natural resources they have is because NGOs have pumped money into politicians and they've set legislation preventing Canadians from touching their own natural resources, which could be the way out of this economic downturn they're in.
But another scandal from a lot of these organizations that were helping migrants cross illegally through the border especially during the Biden administration, was about 300,000 children that have been lost.
No, 3,000.
No, 300,000 children that had been lost by the Biden administration. And now Tom Homan announced that ICE has located 3,364 of them, unaccompanied alien children in Minnesota so far that the Biden regime wasn't even looking for.
And this is a huge amount of children they found now that were possibly being trafficked. These stories need to be told. I understand they're kids, so you can't put names and faces in there. But you've had a couple incidents with ICE. Trump's kind of changed the tactics, backed them off, and now they're protecting federal buildings and going directly after very specific cases. They don't have that street presence like they used to. But I'm more than willing to have 2 or 3 cases that go awry, especially when we're looking at 50 states here, in order to get 3,300 children back.
In addition to taking public safety threats off the street, ICE here in this state have located 3,364 missing unaccompanied alien children that the last administration lost and weren't even looking for. That's because of the leadership of President Trump, these children were located. In addition to taking public...
And let's remember, Tom Homan has worked for 6 different administrations now, both Democrat and Republican. He has good tactics. A lot of the incidents that happened in Minnesota didn't happen under Tom Homan. They brought him in to kind of clean it up, and he's done a good job, changed the tactics, and yeah.
But I do see, and I have seen, for example, from Nick Fuentes and a lot of other commentators that already, criticized Trump quite a bit, saying that he completely backed down and that he's not actually doing what he promised he did. You and I had a debate a while ago about that same thing.
Yeah, well,
where would you put this?
He had a mandate to go in there and go pretty hard with ICE, and that's exactly what he tried to do. There was pushback, and then we had a couple of tragic incidents. That's not going to look good in the midterms if he keeps that up. So you have to evaluate, how is he getting rid of all these migrants? What's Trump being successful at? And he's not successful with actual ICE. He's only gotten rid of a couple 100,000. What he's being successful with is the remigration program at airports, where he gives $2,500 plus a plane ticket anywhere in the world, whether that's their home country or a country like Canada, which will accept them. And he's deported 1.5 to 2 million migrants with that program. That program's much more successful. On top of that, the other part of the illegal immigration that he's been successful at is the border. He's completely shut it down. It makes the Democrats look like absolute fools. Under Biden, for 4 years, they said, oh, we can't do it. We don't have the legislation. Trump went in there and shut it down like that, which is hugely important because you need to stop the influx of new illegal migrants from coming in.
And I think it is because the remigration or self-deportation that has been successful hasn't been as talked about, because it's not as interesting and sexy as people chasing people down the streets and the protests and etc. But that is an aspect that I think a lot of people are omitting when they start criticizing and saying he completely backed down. No, they just changed tactics, and it might be less visible now, but it might actually be more effective too.
Yeah. And he also has to consider the midterms. And I know a lot of people don't want to talk about that. And it looks like he's probably going to lose right now, just because every single president that's the incumbent president always loses, all the way back to before Ronald Reagan.
But now for this creepy joker.
Oh, this was a bit of a creepy story, actually.
From Lips of TikTok, creepy California State Senator Scott Wiener joined elementary-aged children at an anti-ICE school walkout and encouraged kids to protest ICE. There's so many things wrong with that sentence, with what he did.
But we have been showing these protests where teachers are taking their students out to these protests. This is dangerous for the students. This is not an activity schools should be involving students in, especially during school hours.
But also the indoctrination and the fact that they're just giving them one side and telling them this is what's right and not explaining anything else. Which, what else do we expect from the teachers' unions?
I'm here with Finley at the Grattan Elementary School protest today, which has been amazing.
It's like a field trip with Tom.
So Finley, what grade are you in? Tell us about yourself.
I'm in 4th grade. I go to Grattan Elementary School, as you said, and I'm organizing this protest to stop ICE. I think it's horrific that people are getting treated this way. I wish Trump would stop doing this to people.
So like how did you get the kids, your like classmates, motivated?
So it started with just, high school students in Minneapolis are walking out of school. Like, that sounds like a thing I should do. But of course, my principal can't authorize a school walkout. So then it ended up being getting checked out of our after school program and then coming to the dog park, having Officer Rhodes and Officer Washington being here for safety.
Thank you for doing this for all the kids who are suffering around the country. It's really powerful.
Yeah, actually, the sign you were holding earlier was the sign I made.
Yeah, it was a good sign. Good. Well, thank you for all you do, Finley. Thank you.
And thank you for shutting him up, because
It's the propagation of the narrative and just continuing with the narrative, because, I mean, I'd love to ask the kid if he even knows what ICE means, what ICE stands for and what they're actually doing, but also the fact that Wiener came out to say, all those kids that are suffering, this is really good what you're doing for them.
Well, I'll say this is actually a step up. This is done more appropriately than the 3 or 4 protests that we showed last week, where they were taking them out of school. The teachers were organizing protests in the classroom, having them make signs in the classroom, then taking them off school grounds into low-income areas that were dangerous. Parents were coming out there. They were frantic when they found out their kids were taken to these things.
We also recently saw in Washington State, there was one of these protests outside of high school, and a mother who just asked them, hey, I mean, what are you doing? Why aren't you supposed to be in class or something? And they beat her up, literally.
Well, these schools
and then the police didn't do anything. The police said, oh, sorry, we couldn't reach you.
These schools are becoming indoctrination centers, and as bad as it is in the United States, I say it's 10 times worse in Canada. Yeah. I mean, it is to a degree in Canada, people in the United States just don't understand. And that's why this Alberta separatist movement has so much support behind it, because they don't want that anymore. There's a million things you can point out. It's just not one thing. So if the federal government offers Alberta a pipeline, I don't think they're going to say, yeah, we want to be part of Canada now. There's just too many things that are really rotten to the core with Canada at its very foundation.
And they compound and compound and compound until you say, I can't take it anymore.
Yeah.
But I will say again, still, and even here in Mexico, with both private and public schools, if you have the ability to homeschool. Because, I mean, it's
But we showed that clip last week. They're trying to pass legislation right now, and it looks like it's going to pass in the UK, where they're banning homeschooling.
Because they know it's not convenient for them, and they can't get them while they're young anymore. From Defiant L's quote, Democrat representative and LGBT activist Becca Blade said, if we don't have avenues for people to come here legally to work or build a home here, we're not going to have anybody around to do stuff, I will say.
Well, and she says it right at the end of this clip, but this is very important. And I think this is real racism here. And liberals don't understand the concept or the thought process that this is extremely racist.
I think deep down they do understand.
Labor, and of course, we have to come to a place in Congress where it is no longer a political issue, but we see it as an existential issue for the country. If we don't have avenues for people to come here legally to work or to build a home here, I'm going to be really crude right now. We're not going to have anybody around to wipe our asses because we don't have enough people laboring.
We're not going to have anybody to wipe our ASSs. This is crazy. Like, first of all, be self-sufficient so you can do things for yourself, number one. And if you're too old where you can't do things for yourself, you probably should have children and raise those children properly so they'll take care of you when you get old.
That's the thing. It's the population collapse of the sexual revolution, of the feminism that told most women, yeah, go out, work, become a man. Don't worry about having a legacy or a future. Told men that they shouldn't want that because that made them supremacists or whatever they started spouting off lately. But it's been decades of them going against the family, going against women and telling them, no, you shouldn't want to have children, and convincing them that they shouldn't want to have children. And now they're in a population, not just in the US, but worldwide, we're in a population collapse. And I mean, we reviewed that documentary by Stephen Shaw, and he's updated it now because the figures are even worse. Here in Mexico, we're also in a population collapse. Everywhere, populations are collapsing. And of course, the ones that are growing older, that we used to be way bigger, are now wondering, well, what did we do? Well, how are we going to be self-sufficient, self-sustained without all of these people to do it for us?
It's not just women. I was watching a debate earlier with Andrew Wilson, and God, I forgot the guy's name. He's from Canada. He's a red pillar, but he's just completely black pilled on men shouldn't get married. They're going to come after your assets, this. And it's just like, you could see his mentality. The gentleman that was from Canada, he had just lost all hope because he doesn't think there's any way to change it. When Andrew Wilson was talking, he was actually giving prescriptions that could work and what's working now. A lot of states are giving 50-50 custody if things do go wrong. And the divorce rate has dropped 20% in those states. I was actually shocked at a lot of the statistics that came out in that debate. If you did get a chance to watch it, it's Andrew Wilson. It's a debate about marriage. It was fantastic. I watched it right before we went on.
I'm not a fan of Andrew Wilson, but
I am.
Yes. But I will say that it is insane how most people don't realize that the red pill is just feminism, but for men. But it's the same ideals of, no, you're self-sufficient, you shouldn't want the other sex, it's all going to be terrible for you, without giving examples of when it actually works that actually give people hope to continue down that pursuit that is the pursuit of humanity.
Well, some of the red pill prescriptions I actually do agree with, but a lot of them I don't agree with. But I also think there's an evolution going on into that community with people like Andrew Wilson that are actually giving good prescriptions now and trying to promote marriage for a new generation. And I mean, I understand why it's so hard to promote marriage now. Feminism has really deteriorated relationships to such an extent, it's scary.
But also the polarization, even just between men and women, not just Democrat, Republican, right, left, but the way that the sexes have kind of moved away from each other within this political polarization that we're seeing. Again, not just in the US, but here in Mexico, we see it too. We see it in Canada more than I think anywhere else too.
Well, a lot of couples just never have the conversation about politics and religion, and if you align on those two things, when you have children with that person, a lot of your prescriptions or how you want to raise that children are you're going to see eye to eye. But if you never have those conversations, or you have opposite views on things, when you have children, when you go head to head, there's going to be some big fights and explosions, and a lot of that's going to result in potential divorce.
But that and finances and yes, values and religion and what you think about the world, how you see the world. And then if you convince yourself that you can live with someone that doesn't share at least most of what you believe in, then it's going to become a very difficult life, I think.
Yeah, it was also interesting. The two groups that had the lowest rates of divorce were Eastern Orthodox Christians, Eastern Orthodox people, and surprisingly atheists.
Mm-hmm.
No, not Catholics.
Oh, so like actually
Eastern Orthodox. Okay. Yeah. And atheist. The atheist statistic was 11%. Eastern Orthodox was 9%. Surprisingly, the reason the atheist had such a low divorce rate was because they get married much later on, but that also promotes either not having children or having fewer children.
Or having to use methods that at least I don't agree with to procure those children. Yeah. That dehumanizes the whole process and the child itself.
Yeah, and I just say in that debate, good on Andrew Wilson for actually giving solutions and having constructive criticisms of things we need to do to actually change the situation, just not giving up hope. The other guy had already lost hope. I understand he was from Canada, and it does seem really hopeless in Canada, and he just feels like he's going to give up. But we need to look at the world. Why? Because if you can come up with a model that works in the United States, other people in other countries can implement that model.
Mm-hmm. And with tweaks and et cetera, but at least giving something to do and the solution. But speaking of the United States, let's actually go look at news from over there.
Yeah.
And starting off with, I don't even know what this is. Starting off with Mike Pence, quote, "For the first time in 6 years of MAGA executive branch control, the U.S. State Department is finally considering conforming its funding choices to the values of the electorate who voted in the MAGA government."
And this is massive because USAID was defunded. A lot of these international organizations Trump went after, and now he's looking to refund, but refund under a new ideology, which is far more right-wing or far more populist, I would say.
Despite its publicly stated will to withdraw from European affairs, it turns out Washington plans to fund ideologically aligned think tanks and charities across Europe.
Pause it.
Democrats.
And the left has been doing this for decades, since Ronald Reagan. I mean, you've had this uniparty with this globalist ideology that has pumped trillions of dollars into NGOs, into green organizations. I mean, you name it, they were doing it. Trump has defunded all of that, and now he's looking to fund a new way of thinking.
Stop, pause. The State Department intends to fund ideologically aligned think tanks and charities in Europe. Wow, this is the first time we've ever done that. We fund tens of thousands of charities and think tanks in Europe. They were always ideologically aligned with the State Department. You dummy, that's why we funded them. You never had a problem with that because in the Transatlantic Alliance, we were one conjoined blob. Your oligarchs were in bed with our oligarchs. So London and Wall Street, money all moved together. No. What you have a problem with is that the State Department, for the first time in Trump's 6 years in office now, because we never did this during Trump 1. We never funded things the MAGA movement supported. We just kept the train rolling that we inherited from Obama and kept funding the organizations that were stabbing us in the back. We were like, hey, Obama funded NGOs. We see your gun has run out of bullets. I know you just shot me in the back 3 times. I'm paralyzed. I can't speak out of the left side of my mouth because the last bullet took a chunk out of my jaw. But I see you've run out of money to buy more bullets with. Here's the taxpayer money of the people who voted for me. Here, take this big chunk of $100 million. Why don't you go to the gun store and buy
you
another?
Can leave it there. And that being said, in Europe, there's been an organic populist movement coming from the right that is taking all these Eastern Bloc countries and really electing this idea of populism, no more immigration, a lot of the values Trump is espousing. The problem is the western half of Europe, the UK, Canada, Australia. But if you start actually funding NGOs and there's starting to come money into this thing, you're going to see a lot of this ideology actually start to change. A lot of these countries think they can just wait Trump out for the 3 years. But if we can make permanent NGOs, not like the left did, but in a positive way that has full transparency, because so many of these NGOs had no transparency. So if Trump does this, he really needs to make radical transparency available for the public for any money that does go out.
But not only in the US, because we're also seeing a realignment and a positioning of the rest of Latin American countries that have turned to the right, which have continued to grow ever since, and the latest one was cast in Chile. We're seeing, for example, President Trump inviting a lot of the leaders on the right or on the more populist side of Latin America to a meeting with him recently, now that there's a lot of stuff going on with Venezuela and Cuba. So him doing this also over here and funding organizations that also work within the continent of the Americas would be, and I think will be, very useful, because we also saw, for example, a lot of organizations from the left, from the US, come take refuge in places like Mexico. The HRC, the Human Rights Campaign, that is all just an LGBTQ organization, now has opened new avenues in Chile, in Argentina, here in Mexico, and have started implementing a lot of the insanity that they did over in the States and in Canada over here. And I think they're doing it while they wait out Trump. But if he can kind of do a left field and left turn and both stop funding them, but start funding things that would actually be beneficial for those that are ideologically aligned with the states, that would be even better.
Yeah, you've seen the pink wave run through Central and South America. It went all extremely left wing, and a lot of billions of dollars of NGO money floating here. But now we're seeing the same thing, kind of the right's taking it back, and they're fixing a lot of these systems and hopefully getting a lot of this out of there. There's 2 major countries, the 2 crown jewels of Central and South America, which is Mexico and Brazil. Brazil's election comes up later this year. It's going to be very interesting if they can shift that, because so much power has been consolidated behind Lula in Brazil. But there is another candidate that's just starting to emerge, and I'm sure Trump's throwing money behind him. The Mexican election's not till 2030 here. That being said, the Mexican election is going to be swayed by whoever wins in the U.S. in 2028, I think. Okay, let's go into the next article here.
California. From the California Republican Party, quote, another refinery shutting down, 400 jobs gone, and California Democrats wonder why they pay $1.50 more per gallon than the national average.
Well, and this story could be literally projected right onto Canada. It's similar policies, almost exact policies. They're not willing to use their own oil. California has massive oil reserves they just don't use.
And they decided to shut it down. 400 jobs lost, as well as a lot of tax revenue. That leaves just 6 refineries left in the state of California after the shutdown of a Phillips.
Yeah, and I used to live right by Wilmington. There's Long Beach is right by that. So I used to drive by those refineries all the time when I did live in California. Okay. I grew up between California and Canada.
66 refinery there earlier this year. The state, by the way, is the largest consumer of fuel, except for Texas. The legislators, the Republicans in the state, say they need a special session to address this. Writing to the governor, they say decades of state policies targeting oil and gas have created a cost and supply crisis with serious consequences, and it's going to get worse without swift action. We talked to a California legislator about it. Listen.
California is truly at a breaking point. Refineries are closing, supply is diminishing, and my constituents are paying more at the pump every single day. And it isn't theoretical. This is happening right now. And the longer we wait to address this issue, the more instability and volatility we'll see here in California.
And Maria, as you report, while the national average for gas right now is well below $3, in California it's $4.52, up 14 cents in the last week and up 30 cents in the last month. They say it's going to get worse.
Yeah, and we had done a story recently on why people were fleeing California, and we talked about the gas prices. But it's crazy because they have all the natural resources they need in California. Again, they're doing the same thing that Canada's doing. They're just legislating themselves out from actually accessing them. And it's not just Canada or California. It's almost every Western country. Europe has completely deindustrialized themselves, more specifically Germany and the UK.
And then they don't understand when the people complain, and the people themselves complaining sometimes don't even understand why it's so much more expensive. And it's because it's a trickle-down effect. Oil is not just used for your car and so you can move places, but to move food places, to move people places, to move equipment and planes and etc. and infrastructure, and to be able to build. If oil prices are way too expensive, everything else gets expensive too. And they don't seem to understand that bit.
Well, and then they wonder when they elect a conservative party or somebody that wants to use their natural resources, why can't they do it? Because this entire ecosystem has been built of legislation. So even if you want to access it, it becomes really hard. And then there's been this other infrastructure of financing NGOs that work against your own interest if you try to access those natural resources. So it's a system really rigged against the citizens themselves.
But speaking of California and its governor, Gavin Newsom, and potential 2028 candidate, let's see what ridiculous thing happened.
I had never seen Gavin Newsom's wife, and I had grabbed this clip, and man, she's extremely unlikable. If you don't know who Gavin Newsom's wife is, well, I guess this is an introduction.
Is this the one that he cheated on?
No, he was actually dating Donald Trump's son's girlfriend.
Oh, yeah.
But
were they married? I think they were married.
I don't think that. I don't know.
I don't know the
but
gossip.
they're not together anymore. No. And this is his new wife.
This is the one that was parading around while everything else was shut down in California, I think, and during the fires.
I hope she talks more and more and more, because she's just going to undermine Newsom and his presidential run for 2028.
So Colin Rugg says California Governor Newsom's wife makes him step aside so she can scold journalists, apparently, and her name is Jennifer Siebel Newsom.
Now, we just find it incredulous that we have Planned Parenthood here, and women are 51% of the population. And the majority of the questions, all of these questions, have really been about other issues. So it's just fascinating. You have this incredible women's caucus and all these allies, and you're not asking about it. And this happens over and over and over and over again. You wonder why we have such a horrific war on women in this country, and that these guys are getting away with it, because you don't seem to care. So I just offer that with love. But these are incredible women in this room, and you have these allies. Ask about what we're here for today, don't you think?
Now we need to learn what words not to say. We have all these allies. As soon as you say that, the moderates are just going to be turned off by that.
But also, ask them about how they murder babies. Literally, that's what she's saying.
Also, I was watching a debate again with Andrew Wilson the other day, but this incredible statistic came up about gay marriage, and it was no state in the United States has ever voted gay marriage in. Some of them have got it in. The way they got it in was by not keep putting it to a vote, because every state that's ever voted on it has said no, including California, which absolutely shocked me. But they do it through the legislator, not allowing people to actually vote on it.
But again, her Karen move. But I do agree with you that if he does run a campaign, he should probably make her stay far away, because she is like the epitome of the Karens and the awfuls, essentially.
Yeah, he's bad enough on his own, but I guess maybe he thinks she's going to rally the Karens for her, the ICE protester Karens for him.
Literally the definition of awful. From MAGA Boys, moving on.
Oh, this was a huge story, and this is what I'm talking about radical transparency and having whistleblowers and protecting those whistleblowers. We did a story on the last episode about a whistleblower in Colorado who is being absolutely attacked by the government now for whistleblowing. They're supposed to be protected, but Colorado is a blue state. A lot of these blue states are going against these federal mandates.
So from MAGA Voice quotes Secretary Scott Bessent stuns America by encouraging whistleblowers to expose fraud. They will receive 10 to 30% of the fines.
We are encouraging whistleblowers who know about fraud, people who are stealing from the American taxpayer, to come forward. At Treasury, we're setting up a website, and we will be giving rewards up to 10 to 30% of the fines that we levy. We are encouraging...
Fantastic. And I mean, Canada's going in the exact opposite direction of this. They're trying to pass legislation where politicians can exempt deeds of corruption, which is absolutely insane, for up to, I think it was it 6 or 15 years? But it's literally the opposite policy.
Sorry, my brain. Back to California, because
this is one big way that you do drain the swamp. And I mean, Trump ran on that, but you need policies like this that are going to incentivize whistleblowers from the inside.
But also the protection of whistleblowers, I think, is important, and is something that was lost. Obama, then Biden, then blah, blah, blah.
Well, and he needs to give immunity or pardons to, oh God, what's the gentleman's name that's now in Russia? I forgot.
Who?
He was the hacker in the U.S. military. Oh, why can't I remember his name?
Snowden?
Yeah, Snowden. Oh. So he needs to give a pardon for Snowden, because that is the most famous whistleblower. Set the example with that. Bring this new policy in where you're going to give people monetary rewards if they blow a whistle on somebody.
Mm-hmm. But as I was saying, I do think it is important now that, I mean, yes, we're nearing the midterms, but then in the U.S., it's also, I mean, who's going to be the candidate for Democrats in 2028 is also, wrapping up.
It's Gavin Newsom, obviously.
And yet his state continues to, we're going back to California now, his state continues to be terrible. From X-Freeze, quote, California billionaire exodus hits new record high. Mark Zuckerberg left with his $229 billion.
Okay, you can skip all the billionaires that are fleeing and how much tax money they're taking with them, but I do need you to read the rest, because this is important. We actually made a full video on this, on why people are leaving California. Yeah. Newsom's trying to deny this. This is a big thing. His state is failing in spectacular fashion. I used to live there. I mean, I don't know which one's worse, Canada or California, but I've lived in both.
It's like the same state planners that are doing the exact same thing, the socialist communists. Quote, people are leaving at record rates. U-Haul literally ran out of trucks, all thanks to socialist dictator Gavin Newsom. Under Newsom's reign of terror, California has lost more residents than any state domestically for 6 years straight, highest state income tax in America. Top 1% already pays 40% of California's tax revenue, which is $122 billion. Now they want a 5% wealth tax on top of that. Newsom turned the Golden State into a golden prison. He taxed the middle class into poverty, which is also true. Now he's chasing away the billionaires who fund the other 40% of his budget. When they leave, who pays for his socialist utopia? Everybody else that is still living there. The damage is done. Silicon Valley built the modern world in California, and a lot of the money as well. Now they're building their next empires in Florida and Nevada and Texas.
Well, and this is just the exact globalist framework that all these countries are working under. They're using all the same policies and destroying their own countries or their own states. I can keep pointing out Canada, but the UK uses all these same policies. So does the EU. Mm-hmm. The EU does it on a much broader scale because they have multiple levels of government where even if you manage to get around to one, they got another level of government ready to play daddy for you.
Yeah, because then there's the unelected government of the EU on top of the government of whatever country you're in.
And then you have NGOs, governing bodies like the UN. I mean, you name it. It's just layer after layer after layer in the EU. It's a permanent prison. I don't know how you get rid of.
And I think the more shocking one has been Mark Zuckerberg, but we also saw him cozying up because he knows what's convenient for him, and also for the failure of his Meta company, especially when he went into the whole metaverse and AI thing that hasn't been working out that well for Meta or Facebook. But I think that one was the most surprising one for people because everybody assumed that he would stay. But also, I think it would be important to ask Gavin about this and during the debates and to be able to present this. During the next presidential debates, to be able to bring all of these things up. Don't forget about this.
Yeah, but I talk about this all the time. He's got his Gavin Newsom podcast, which I watch a lot because he does bring conservatives on there that challenge and debate him in a long format. So he's preparing himself for the 2028 presidency or for the candidacy. And he's got excuses for a lot of these things. If you ask him, well, your state has more residents leaving than any other state, but he also say, yeah, we have the most people coming in. You need to know the statistic there. The only people coming in are actually illegal immigrants because it's a sanctuary state. So they take more than they actually put into the system.
And that's also the thing with Newsom. He is very good at lying, and he is very good at twisting whatever you're asking or saying to benefit him, but then being able to have that counter to say, no, actually, this is the other statistic. This is what you're actually saying, and explaining it to the public too, because I think that's also how he's been able to stay there for so long.
Yeah, it's gonna be a clip warfare with him, where you need him to say something on stage, knowing the exact clip that you're gonna be able to put online after. And I think that's how you kind of beat him. Yeah. But let's go into the last story for U.S. politics before we go into Latin America. And I put Latin America ahead of Canada today because I wanted to compare and contrast a little bit, because both Canada and Latin America have far left people running their governments, but Mexico has taken a far different strategy to the United States. They're cooperating 100% behind the scenes, and they're having a massive economic benefit right now.
From Mark Nixon, quote, Donald Trump announces the biggest deregulation in U.S. history. Courts pledge to fight back, which is crazy. Trump says the deregulation will lower the cost of purchasing a vehicle and energy costs. Canada is watching closely as they go into a completely different direction.
The EU, Australia, California, Canada, they all need to deregulate.
But it's not convenient for them.
Oh, and this is part of what Alberta wants to do. They want to deregulate and get rid of all the things that are handicapping them from gathering their natural resources.
And actually using them and benefiting the people living in Alberta.
Well,
and
using them at a fair market value. Yeah. I mean, Canada wants to put so much carbon tax, you can't even sell it on the open market because you're selling it at a loss.
First, a landmark scientific ruling on climate change that was key to reducing planet warming gases.
It has nothing to do with public health. This was all a scam, a giant scam. This was a ripoff of the country by Obama and Biden.
2009, the endangerment finding concluded that a wide range of greenhouse gases posed a threat to public health. It became a key legal component to lowering emissions. Now the White House is calling the reversal the largest deregulation in American history, claiming cars will become cheaper and costs will come down for automakers. Environmental groups say this is the biggest rollback on climate change yet and will challenge it in court.
Yeah, what this is doing, and he might pitch it in the way of cars and products and gasoline will come down in value, but the real thing is he's taking the handcuffs off that the legislator put on America through all these green energy policies. It really only benefits China and Russia and the global South. I'm glad to see America is going a different direction, and for the first time in over a decade, America is outgrowing China and is outpacing China. Trump's only been in there 1 year, and he's already begun to reverse the roles of growth of the economy when you compare the United States to China.
And while I do think it is important to conserve the environment, especially for the fewer generations that will come after the ones that are living now, the whole climate change hoax has been overblown to a level where it's just convenient for those at the top who implement these policies because they're also involved with everything that they're trying to implement. So that is where it becomes like the scam and the hoax that people talk about. Not that there isn't or hasn't been an impact on the environment, but the ways to fix it hasn't worked either. They're just polluting more with their giant energy, solar power grids and their windmills. But I do think there has to be something done. But to do so, you also need to be able to produce enough to sustain while you build up, and I will say towards nuclear energy.
You need to use oil and natural gas to leapfrog this green scam that they tried to portray to us and go into nuclear and fusion. Fusion technology has come a long way. So has nuclear. Mini reactors are here. You're going to need a way to subsidize the government until you can get into nuclear. There was one more thing I wanted to say there. Oh, we didn't even see the full extent of this green scam. Mark Carney is still trying to stick with it. He was the global architect of what these carbon credits were supposed to be and a lot of other things. This is what the EU wanted to do. This is what Canada wanted to do. They wanted to control the global economy through this carbon credit scam.
And I will say, again, as a conservative, at least myself, I do agree that it is important to go back to the land, understand where food comes from, produce better food, produce healthier food, teach children and adults about how the rest of the land outside of cities work, and even going back to living in those in the country or towards the cities. I think, why are you eating my Pop-Tart? This doesn't go to what I'm saying about eating healthier. This doesn't help it. But I do think that those are important points. But again, there are very different ways to do it, very different messaging in ways to do it. And I think people like, I don't know, for example, I can't think of any. Well, RFK Jr. is like the number one, but also all of the farmers fighting in Europe to conserve their farms, their family farms, their legacy that they have built, and the way that they're able to interact positively with the land, with smaller farms that are now being, they're trying to take them over with these giant industrialized government-controlled farms. I think that that is where the message is. That is where the actual caring for the environment comes in. But because it's been so villainized in a way by the left, by what the left has done with the climate hoax and scam, it's impossible to kind of get neutral ground on it. But I think it is, I mean, we should do that.
Okay, let's go into Latin America.
I went into a babble there.
Let's go into Latin America, and then we'll go into Canada. But I think this is a good compare and contrast on the strategies that they're kind of invoking to deal with the United States and Trump and their future economic growth.
But first, Lyle Norman does say, love the VCR. Thank you. I spent like a month designing all of our transitions.
She talked about it for about 6 months. And then finally I told her, don't talk about it anymore unless you're going to do it. And she did it.
Because if you go back to like our older live streams, even on this channel, all the visuals were very different. I've designed them all, but the first ones were kind of in a rush because we just wanted to start doing something and doing live streams, and we just kind of kept it for a year. And then at the end of last year, we said, well, I mean, we should make it nicer and more interesting. And then with the chapters that we have, it's allowed us to cover a lot more, I think.
And bring the audience into it.
And yeah, bring them, because that's what lives are for. I mean, edited videos are for people to watch and then maybe comment, but we love to read the comments. We love to interact with you all. So leave us what you're thinking right now.
And is there any comments on RUMBLE?
No.
Because we missed them last time.
I just checked. I know.
Okay.
I just checked.
Ethel must not be here today.
No, there's one person on RUMBLE, but eventually we do move over to RUMBLE. And also at the end of all of our live shows or live streams, we put chapter markers. If you're watching it on a replay or just want to go back or watch one section like Canada or the US, then you can just click on it and it goes to that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's why we have the chapter markers. But yes, now we're moving on to where we are right now, Latin America. Okay, let's start. Hold on. And I keep seeing this specific poster pop up a lot. And I'm glad that he's speaking about this in English, because it's hard to find news that is actually happening and commentary that is happening within Mexico or within Latin America in English that is verified and credible. But because I can translate it in my head.
And again, we moved from Canada to Mexico because you're originally from Mexico.
I'm from Mexico.
Just the government was too crazy in Canada, so I completely sympathize with the Alberta separatist movement now. Yeah.
But now we're also kind of trying to fight for Mexico because it is controlled by a quasi-socialist, dictatorial, lefty, lunatic government.
Oh, same as Canada. Yeah. I mean, and this is what's such such a great example when you look at Mexico's strategy with dealing with Trump compared to Mark Carney's.
Mm-hmm. From Leon Barrena Rodriguez and Partners, LLP, he says Mexico's...
Oh, I need you... Sorry. This was the actual post. I needed you to read this whole thing because I've been talking about this every day, and then I seen this post, and then I'm like, oh, this is everything I've been kind of saying.
And we actually reported on this because I started seeing it in Spanish social media, and we reported it last week.
But I was saying this stuff for months now.
Yeah,
way before this ever came out. I had made these conclusions in my own head.
Yeah, and a lot of people think Mexico's not kind of fully cooperating with the U.S., but they are. Just in the background.
The post will explain it.
Mexico's security posture has shifted decisively beneath the surface, and Washington is not merely observing it, but actively structuring it. Our Washington office can confirm that the Mexican armed forces are executing a calculated appeasement strategy toward the United States designed to secure trust, access, and long-term political cover. Recent joint maritime operations between the Mexican Navy and United States Southern Command, including the record white powder seizure near Isla Clarion, reflect this recalibration in practice. Their objective is to deliver tangible outcomes that signal reliability and alignment with U.S. security priorities in the hemisphere, as they also said when they came out with in November with their national security strategy from the states. The authorized presence of SEAL Team 2 in Campeche, formally presented as joint exercises and approved unanimously by a Morena-controlled Senate, fits the same pattern.
And that unanimous vote they had in the Senate to cooperate with the U.S. military in Mexican territory was huge. Not one person voted against it. Yeah. So they talk tough in public, and Trump lets them do that, but it's complete cooperation behind the scenes. They understand they need to play to the base publicly while they're cooperating privately.
The operational profile points toward embedded cooperation with Mexican special forces under procedural cover. The intent is normalization of interoperability and quiet acceptance of U.S. operational proximity on Mexican territory by the U.S. Northern Command. At the political level, the Trump administration is operating under a classic Kissinger doctrine of compartmentalization, under which the Mexican government is permitted to signal one position publicly while executing another under American authorization and supervision. Publicly, the Mexican government sustains a nationalist posture calibrated to Morena's insanely leftist base that demands visible rejection of U.S. involvement. And we've seen Claudia Sheinbaum come out and say, sovereignty and the Mexican territory is going to be sovereign. We won't let invaders come in, and not to the U.S., but then we see this as well. Well, then publicly, okay, I read that part. Privately, it is authorizing deep operational cooperation and access. This separation between rhetoric and action is intentional. We can confirm that Secretary of State Marco Rubio is explicitly applying this doctrine in his dealings with Sheinbaum, tolerating public resistance so long as operational alignment proceeds without obstruction.
Okay, you can kind of leave it there, but
and then another important figure that will start coming up soon is this guy, Omar Garcia Harfuch, who is right now the national security administrator, basically.
And why is this so important? They're giving unprecedented cooperation with the United States. Publicly, they're stating in different game, and Trump knows that. Trump lets them do that, but behind the scenes, they're cooperating, and Trump is rewarding them for it. They're currently in a trade war with China. They're pulling back investment, and $1 out of every $4 that used to go to China that they've now pulled back, they reinvest into Mexico. That's why Mexico has become the number one trading partner of the U.S. Canada used to slightly outrank Mexico. Now Mexico is firmly in that place, and they're growing every single day. Behind the scenes, Trump is trying to turn Mexico into the kind of the new China, the new manufacturing hub for the stuff that they don't want to manufacture in the States because it's not cost effective.
But we're also, and lower down that post that goes into it, but we kind of also talked about it as well. There has been kind of a hidden fight since last year within the Morena party, which is the dominant party right now, the party in Mexico that Claudia Sheinbaum is from, where they're kind of there's internal fighting given the corruption and as to how to manage the corruption. But I think a lot of this cooperation is coming because, is coming because Morena knows that the U.S. has and basically knows all of the corruption just from the Morena party, and they want to be able to keep the corruption hidden and covered because they'll lose, and they're already losing a lot of popularity within Mexico.
Let's cover the next three stories fairly quickly, and then we'll get into Canada.
From Samuel, quote, this week, Mexico's Congress approved a gradual 8-hour reduction of the work week. Argentina legalized 12-hour work days, and they're trying to make a contrast that I don't think is going to work if you look into it properly.
Yeah, there are major protests going on right now in Argentina, supposedly over these 12-hour work weeks they put in place. So we'll kind of see what happens. Javier Milei is a populist, so he's very likely to maybe repeal that. But why don't we go into the next article, which is related about Mexico?
Mexico. I have Argentina stuff.
Oh, it's the last. Did you get the breakdown of the Mexican?
No.
Hours that you said? Okay, Mexico's not actually doing. Mexico's not actually doing. No, don't look for it.
Okay.
Mexico's not actually doing 8-hour work weeks. They're actually going to ramp them up, and we'll show it on the next show, I guess, because we didn't have the post.
Yeah. Well, essentially, the way it works is they're saying, yes, they're reducing 8-hour work weeks, but they're actually not putting protections in for workers. And it's just going to increase year after year how many hours workers actually end up working. So it's not a good thing. But in Argentina, we do see from Lord Bibo, quote, some demonstrators hurled rocks, bottled BOMBS and petrol, same at the police lines in Buenos Aires, Argentina. President Milei's labor reform that caused the protest is aimed to shift the country toward a free market economy.
Yeah, and all this stuff is just coming out, and sometimes when they have pictures of protests in countries, the reporting is not exactly accurate. So I'll take this with a grain of salt now. They're saying it's because of the 12-hour work days. That's not 100% confirmed, but that seems to be what it's over right now. There'll be more confirmation by Monday, though. But let's just take a look at the video.
Okay, because also under the Peronista government style that had dominated Argentina and put Argentina in a hole for so long, a lot of the policies implemented were very socialistic. So it was very beneficial for the worker in a way, but also tanking the country when you look at it from an overview.
Okay, and you can leave it there. I just wanted to mention that story because I think there'll be some updates by Monday for that thing.
And Argentinians do love to protest as well.
Okay, we'll go into Canada now.
Okay, hold on then. Let me check if there's comments. No. Okay, so let's go to Canada. And we have been talking about Canada basically for the past 2 weeks, but again, it is because we left. It's what started our channel. And then thank you to all the Canadians, especially the Albertans that do want independence, that have joined us now in this fight.
Well, I noticed when I started making a transition back to Canada because I wanted to start talking about the Alberta separatist movement as it builds steam over the next 6 or 7 months. But I started talking about Canadian topics first. Mm-hmm. And there was a lot of backlash because I do call out the Canadian government as it exists now under Mark Carney. I just don't like it. I don't like a lot of the policies. And when we get so much hate coming in, when we finally did a video about the Alberta separatist movement and we got a ton of support. So thank you for everybody that's from Alberta that has supported us. Okay.
Firstly, from Brian Gertison, quote, you can always count on our media in Canada to do what they do best. The speed they push this messaging out is not organic. Of course, they have been told to do so and also paid to do so. Let's remember those massive subsidies the federal government gives to outlets like CBC, CTV, etc. All focus off the victims. Let's focus on protecting the community.
This is absolutely insane. And this is typical Canadian mass media for you.
As news of Tuesday's school shooting in Tumbler Ridge broke and details began to emerge, Dee McWater says her heart sank for the victims, for their families, and for the transgender community.
And it was like, oh no, you know what? People are going to use this to weaponize hate.
Even before the shooter's identity.
They're going to use it to weaponize hate. No, the government's going to weaponize it to take people's firearms is what's going to happen.
But also the TRANS community has been weaponizing themselves for the longest time and becoming a very violent faction that people should start talking about more and stop being scared of doing so.
Well, we showed our videos at the beginning of the episode today, kind of how we started the channel. But after that, we started working with Billboard Chris a lot. You designed his website and we went out and filmed with him quite a bit.
Mm-hmm. Eventually, we do want to interview him, but he's very busy now. And that's a good thing. But let's continue.
identity was confirmed by police, speculation about their gender identity was spreading across social media. Among them, a post from BC MLA Tara Armstrong, which said there is an epidemic of transgender violence spreading across the West. Elon Musk also shared a number of tweets claiming that trans people are more likely to carry out mass shootings. Armstrong has not responded to our request for comment, but for members of the trans community, there is a worry these statements will lead to further marginalization.
This has nothing to do with ideologies, politics, being transgender. It's a mental health issue.
And according to statistics, mass shooters who identify as transgender are rare.
I think it's a product of the information environment that we're in. So when a shooter is transgender, that becomes the headline and that becomes the story.
James Densley is a co-founder of the Violence Project, which tracks mass shootings in the United States defined as 4 or more people shot and killed. He says they have just one incident in their database.
There's just one incident, my freaking ass. We covered this every single day. There's well over a dozen at this point. I mean, this is the new profile of what a mass shooter has become. And I think it has a lot to do with a lot of the different medications they're on now.
But also, I'll finish this and then I'll
the fact that they're saying there's only one mass shooting with somebody with that profile
That's
is
insane.
an absolute lie.
2023 school shooting in Nashville involving a shooter that identified as transgender. Densley says linking trans identity with violence is an extension of other ways the trans community has been demonized.
There's been a lot of conversations about transgender people's role in society, their access to care, for instance, their access to bathrooms. This is an extension of that line of thinking.
According to a number of studies, transgender people are more likely to be victims themselves of violence, with transgender hate crimes on the rise.
Yeah, and it's not all transgendered people. But it's this new crazy breed that has kind of come up, this ideological breed. There are more traditional transgendered people like a Blair White that just don't have the same, I'm going to go put a bullet in everybody kind of problem.
Well, the thing is, and I've seen other commentators also touch on this, but the fact that and especially in Canada, with the whole affirm-only model that had been implemented in the UK, in the US, but in Canada so strongly and specifically, a lot of people that might already have those mental health issues, might already be on other types of medication for mental health issues, then walk into a community that will only affirm them, only affirm their delusions and tell them that they're perfect and that they should change and be whoever they actually are, no matter if that who they actually are is an insane person, and that is not taken into account. The actual mental health issue, the actual mental health issues or sickness isn't taken into account, and it's kind of lumped into this whole, they're trans, so let's be nice and friendly to them, and let's affirm every single thing they say and do. And I think that brought in a new crop of mental issues into the community that already was struggling and by itself is already a mental issue.
Yeah, the affirm-only model is a massive problem, especially in Canada. And you recently had the Conservatives at their convention literally vote that policy in and didn't go against it, which should not be a Conservative policy, should not be on the platform. And it's just another reason why Pierre Poilievre isn't really representing real conservatism at a national level. I like him as a safety net, and he's the best you're going to get for a conservative in Canada as a full nation, because he has to create a big umbrella.
Because he has to placate those that could vote for him, and then, he did vote for that? Okay, then I'll vote for him.
But Alberta has an opportunity to kind of vote for real conservatism and really make their own path here.
And we did speak about this story, I think, briefly last stream, so you can go watch that part. But because YouTube has been very censorious regarding the story, we have kind of skirted around it as well, unfortunately for us. From Jeffrey Rath, who brought us a bunch of subscribers, so thank you. 50,000 Canada.
Oh yeah, thank you to Jeffrey Rath, by the way.
Yeah.
We made that video, and that's by far our most popular video, and it really put us into monetization. And this is a movement I sincerely support, and he is one of the big figureheads of that movement.
And I mean, now I really would love to reach out and try to interview him if he'll have us. From Jeffrey Rath, quote, 50,000 canvassers, permanent signing locations across the province, 87 constituency door-to-door campaign. Carney wants 600% carbon tax increase. It would destroy Alberta oil worse than the National Energy Program.
We have a 50,000 canvasser goal. We want to, we're getting our permanent locations for signing set up across the province. And then once we get that done and have achieved that objective with volunteers spanning every permanent station, then we want to have a 87 constituency door-to-door, door-knocking signature campaign across every constituency in the province. We want to hit every door in the province. The support from our fellow Albertans is overwhelming, and we're very, very energized by what's happening. Mark Carney wants a 600% increase on the carbon tax in Alberta to decarbonize Alberta oil. We're done. Like, we can't handle this level of stupidity anymore. I mean, if Mark Carney were to impose the 6-fold increase on carbon tax that he's bragging about, it would destroy the Alberta oil and gas industry worse than the National Energy Program did, and would drive out any new investment in oil and gas in Alberta, which I'm sure is what he's intending.
Him and Keith Wilson are just absolutely phenomenal, and they have the personality and they have the knowledge behind the scenes to make this framework. This framework that they're creating is absolutely crucial, not just for Alberta, but for Saskatchewan as well. Saskatchewan doesn't have the kind of leadership Alberta has with Keith Wilson and Jeffrey Rath. I was watching some of their rallies and the people that are leading that movement. God bless their soul, but it's not the same kind of leadership Alberta has. But Alberta is going to do a lot of the heavy lifting here. Jeffrey Rath, Keith Wilson are doing that lifting. And we do have a video coming out on Sunday or Monday about Keith Wilson.
But also, I mean, again, just to prove that those canvassers are out there, one of you in the comments, Lyle Norman, just said that he signed up to be a canvasser. So it is a genuine movement for all the people trying to say, oh, nobody's actually supporting it. Yes, they are.
Well, and there's a lot of people that aren't even signed up for being canvassers, but that are getting the paperwork and that are just doing it randomly. I mean, Marty up north is one of those people, and he says he gets 40 to 50 signatures every day he goes out. Jeffrey Rath right there is talking about having 50,000 canvassers. I think they're going to have no problem getting over 1 million signatures, and I think the Canadian government's going to get really scared at that point.
And that's where we're seeing them ramp up the propaganda campaign against the independence movement from Alberta. But also someone we profiled today is Maxime Bernier, and he continues to speak and say things that make everybody in Canada very uncomfortable, but as he should. From the People's Party of Canada says, quote, "We need a pause on immigration to fix problems. Open doors to immigrants who share our values. No more foreign workers, temporary workers, or UN refugees," and most of them are quote unquote refugees. "Economic immigration paused until fixed."
And he is the real conservative of Canada that's never backed off of his values, that when these things weren't popular, he was saying them, and he's still saying them to this day. We just made a video of him. If you haven't watched the video, watch it. Maybe fast forward through the first clip. We should have put the second clip. We should have put the second clip first. And the second clip was actually he's putting his full weight and support behind the Alberta separatist movement. And he's one of the only politicians on a national level actually putting support for Alberta independence. These national politicians are scared to touch the issue.
And I mean, luckily also Daniel Smith has kind of supported at least being able to do the referendum and do the signatures, but he has now fully come out as well.
That's why we are for a pause. A pause on immigration until we fix all these problems. After that, let's do what we did in the past, opening our doors to real immigrants that are coming here because they share our values, because a Canadian entrepreneur was not able to find a Canadian for that job, and with criteria, because, you know, in the past, if you didn't speak English or French, it was very difficult to become an immigrant because you have fewer points. We had a real good point system, and it's not working anymore. So I agree with you. Let's fix all that. That's why we want to have a pause for the time to fix the healthcare system. It's not by putting more money, by the way. It's by having more competition and more private delivery in healthcare, like Sweden and other countries.
Give me a little bit of more granular detail. Like, what does a pause actually look like?
So first, for temporary foreign workers, no more. No more, only for the agricultural sector. That's it. Pierre Poilievre is saying also the same thing, but he said, you know, we need a transition period of 5 years. So actually is for the statu quo. So that's our position. Temporary foreign workers, no more, except for the agricultural sector. Refugees. No more refugees coming from the UN under the UN program. It must be a refugees that would be sponsored by a private organization. And also it must be a real refugees. So, and also on the economic immigrants.
Yeah.
So that would be a real pause. No more economic immigrants, no more immigrants.
You can leave it there. And I'm glad one politician actually has normal stances, or the stances that I actually agree with. And I think a lot of Canadians agree with. But these politicians in Canada just have no balls and they have no spine, and they just won't stand up and say it. Good on him for saying it, even though he doesn't get the support he probably deserves.
And again, we always do highlight that Canada used to have one of the best immigration systems in the world, where other countries were coming to Canada to ask how they did it with the point system and with the kinds of immigrants that they were getting and how they were benefiting from that immigration. I came in under Stephen Harper as a student to Canada. I had to do all the tests and all the things and be a student, et cetera, 4 years, blah, blah, blah. And then I saw when the Liberals came in, literally year after year, Vancouver, but all of Canada declining, and the systems and the infrastructure declining too, the lack of housing, the increase in costs, the cost of living just becoming insane. All of that I witnessed, and then it became exponential right before we left, but it had been building up to that point for since I got there almost.
The key point to the one kind of refugee you want no more is people that are coming there on refugee status. We're going to have a story coming up in the EU section, which is absolutely insane. ISIS is now considered to have refugee status in the EU. If that policy comes to Canada, that's absolutely insane. You're literally taking, and I'm not talking about ISIS that's within the country. I'm talking about ISIS from the Middle East can now claim refugee status and get into the EU. If Canada adopts the same policy, which they usually do, it goes to the EU first, then to Canada, you're literally importing terrorists into your country.
And that's insane, but it makes it way more clear. Like, it's showing their hand, essentially, what they're actually trying to do. But something else we have released their video recently about, and that we have seen conversation not just in Canada, but worldwide almost, about dynamic pricing and how grocery stores and other stores are trying to implement the models that places like Amazon and Uber are able to do online, or at least with an online system, and put it into physical stores, which is insane, where they can say, oh, it seems like you have more money, so we're going to charge you more, or it seems like you wouldn't buy it at this price, so we're going to charge less.
Well, it's I think what they're talking about here is actually time of day.
Mm-hmm. So
surge pricing by time of day.
From the food professor, quote, yeah, I know, I'd just like to say who put it up.
Bite out of your grocery bills amid rising prices at the checkout.
Manitobans should be paying apples to apples prices. They should be able to know that when they go to a grocery store that there's going to be consistency and transparency in pricing. But right now, there's a risk that they may not be. So we want to know more about that so we can understand how we can respond to it.
Finance Minister Adrian Sala says the study will focus on what's driving rising grocery prices and come up with, quote, real workable actions the government can take to bring costs down. Sala says much of the study will target predatory or dynamic pricing. That's when grocers alter food prices based on demand, inventory, competitor behavior, or consumer data. One analyst says there's no evidence Canadian grocers are actually using dynamic pricing right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, oh, you can keep playing it.
That's the thing, because it is there's this push with AI or from AI to change pricing strategies, really. I would say that there is dynamic pricing going on up the food chain, of course, with suppliers and manufacturers. That certainly is something that we have seen before, but...
The province says a team from the Manitoba Bureau of Statistics will examine end-to-end grocery prices.
Okay, and you can leave it there. And the big thing is surge pricing, dynamic pricing is going to be coming to Canada. It's the one country that's perfectly kind of set up for it. And the federal government absolutely loves surge pricing, because the low surge pricing at 6 a.m. in the morning, or when nobody's in the grocery store actually shopping, they give cheaper prices. And then when everybody's in there, more expensive prices. But what does the federal government use for their national statistics? The cheapest price possible, so they can say grocery prices are low. But when people are actually shopping, they're not getting those prices.
But we've also seen investigations from the U.S. where they had made it clear and have made it clear that this is already happening with, it's even like the little sticker price tags on each item change, and they're using the kind of same technology that a Kindle would use, so it's not actually digital. But they also have implemented a lot of more cameras within the stores to actually build profiles of their customers, so they can know who's walking by down what aisle and change the prices as you move through the aisle. Yeah. And they have been able to completely film this happening as it's happening. So again, not surprised. But I mean, that's what Amazon does too.
Yeah.
At the same time. Okay. Continuing on from Gen Xer.
And it's quite long, so let's just go into the clip. I want to try to get through
this. It's not
this.
a clip, it's an article.
Oh, it is. Okay.
So it says, quote, Carney drops the BOMB on January 26, renaming GST to the Canada Groceries and Essentials Benefit, slapping on a 50% one-time top-up up to $950 for a single person or $1,890 for family.
Yeah, basically he's trying to buy votes through this food pricing rebate, I guess you would call it.
Mm-hmm.
So $950 for a single person, $1,900 for a family. Food prices are going to continue to soar. He's not fixing the problem. He's literally trying to buy your vote right before a snap election. There's going to be more policies like this, more payouts coming to Indigenous nations, to individuals. This is what Trudeau did. This is what Carney thinks he can do. This is how he thinks he can buy votes.
But Jay here also hits it on the head on the other stand and hide. Literally days later, prices at the checkout will go nuclear because it's also a 25% permanent boost for the next 5 years. So this is textbook inflation, more money dumped into people's accounts, stores and suppliers jack prices up to get all that money and all that revenue that people now have more access to. So yeah, the new federal grocery rebate will cost $12.4 billion PBO.
Yeah, and that's money they have to print that's going to inflate the price of food overall. So
we remember what happened during the terrible times of 2020 in Canada when they were just giving free money to people and that they weren't able to deal with the aftermath and the consequences that Canadians are still living through today and having to handle today.
And I wasn't sure if this next clip, what you can go into it. I wasn't sure if this was a conservative show or a liberal show, but.
From Table Salt, quote, liberal strategist Jamil Jivani says it's too unattractive to be successful in politics.
Yeah, and he's a cancer survivor. That's why he's bald. Plenty of politicians are unattractive and they're very successful. It's not about, about attractiveness to get elected. It's about transparency, honesty, and having somebody you can trust. I like Jamil Jivani, and I hope he works his way up the ladder.
So David Earl is the one that attacked Jamil Jivani, apparently.
So it's about him and his political future. Is this the show where we're supposed to tell the truth about politics? Is this where we're supposed to tell the truth? He's too unattractive physically to be successful in politics. He's not going to be the leader of a political party.
Oh, I don't know if I'd agree with that. I don't know if I'm not going to weigh in on
Which
that.
part? And he's too unattractive? Or you got to break this down, Fran. I know it's day one, but come on.
As soon as the election was over, he immediately put out a.
I can't believe you're going to dismiss this as not mattering. Of course it matters.
I don't look. I think he's well spoken, and I'm not ever going to say if a guy looks good or bad. I just
pause it.
Can't do it.
They're going to show a picture of him in a minute. Don't take it off. This is how you get somebody like Trudeau running your freaking country. Oh, I'm a supermodel. I'm going to run your country, and I'm going to steal all your money and be completely corrupt. I don't want a Trudeau anymore. I'm happy to have a Jamil Jivani. They didn't show a picture of him. No. I thought they did. Okay.
But still, I mean, if those are liberal strategists, then even if they're conservative, even if they were conservatives, but that is the kind of rotten, and I agree with that word, discourse that we see and we continue to see as the priorities of those at the top.
Yeah, especially when Jamil Jivani's going down to the United States, actually trying to do something, while Carney's hiding in Canada.
And complaining.
Yeah, fuming the flames with him and Trump because he knows it's going to play good in an election.
With their biggest ally that they have.
Which is going to hurt the Canadian economy.
More about Liberals, quote, Jing Lai He says, quote, the Liberals just voted against a conservative motion which would have banned non-citizen criminals from making refugee claims and receiving sentencing discounts. Disappointing, but not surprising at all. And we also just saw a case in Canada where somebody that was under I think it was an asylum claim. One of the factors during the sentencing of that person was that their asylum claim would be affected by them going to jail after doing disgusting things.
Yeah.
Which I can't talk about on YouTube.
Let's go into the last article post here before we go into the EU.
From also Jing Lai He, quote, the Supreme Court of Canada sides with the Bloc Québécois candidate and annuls the result in the Terrebonne riding from the 2025 federal election. This means Mark Carney is down yet another member of parliament, and a by-election in Terrebonne must be called within the next 6 months.
Yeah, and I was glad to see this because if they didn't correct this was outright election rigging. I thought they were putting the wrong mailing return address on the ballots that went out, which invalidated her ballot. That election was actually lost by 1 vote.
Yeah, so Bloc candidate Nathalie Sinclair Desagné, I think, has won her appeal of the single vote loss.
Okay, let's go into the.
Well, we do have a few comments.
Oh, okay. Let's get to the comments. We're not going to do all the EU stories today because we're just running out of time, and there's a lot of them. But I'll tell you which ones to go to, and then we'll go.
Have 40 minutes.
Okay. Well, we'll try. There's a lot of EU stuff.
Okay. Lyle Norman says Jeff Brath is a genuine man and actually is able to speak and is not afraid to speak, which I think too many conservatives have become so in Canada.
Well, he's a good contrast to Keith Wilson. Keith Wilson is your traditional, nice, polite Canadian. Jeffrey Rath is like the Alberta Donald Trump. He's breaking the liberal media's mind when he goes and does these interviews. They ask him a question, he quickly answers that question, and then throws a bunch of you're making deals with the Chinese Communist Party, and just goes on and on and on, and absolutely breaks down Mark Carney and the mainstream media in general. So having that contrast of both strategies is going to work phenomenally for Alberta.
Lyle Norman also says, I will have to wait 7 to 10 days to get my canvasser badge, but just the fact that you're willing, that you're doing it, and there hopefully is more people also doing that if and when they can, is great.
It's absolutely huge. This is a grassroots movement, and it needs all Canadians to come out. Kind of like those first videos we showed on today's episode, where we were just going out to the border and we were just going to the truckers' protest, and then we were doing the march across Canada, and then we worked with Billboard Chris. It was just one small thing after another small thing, and every little small bit really helps, especially with something like the Alberta separatist movement, because there's a distinct time frame on this thing that we need to get this thing done. So everybody needs to kind of step up now that is living in Alberta.
And also being able to prove and compound that effort and that support is there as well.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to the EU, which apparently we have too many stories for, but we'll see.
I usually try to put the better ones up front, or the more controversial ones up front. This one I should have maybe put this one in Rumble, but.
On RUMBLE. But yes, I mean, insane from American AF. Quote, the British government has overwhelmingly voted against an investigation into child rape scandals, claiming it will damage the image of Muslim communities.
Well, and the reason I put this in here, last time we did a 3-part story going in depth that they were trying to erase all the criminal statistics for these rape gangs.
The court document.
Now they're saying outright they're not going to investigate it because it will damage the image of the Muslim community. Are you out of your freaking mind? What did
and we see who they're protecting. Again, it's been 20 years or more in the UK where they've been hiding all of these disgusting crimes, and now they're just saying it out loud.
Eyes to the right, 111. The nose to the left, 364. The eyes to the right were 111. The nose to the left, 364. So the nose have it. The nose have it. Unlock. The question is that the bill be now read a second time. As many as are of that opinion say aye. Aye. Of the contrary, no. Aye. Division.
Absolutely ridiculous. They're not even going to investigate it now. I mean, they're literally trying to stoke a civil war in Europe. There's no doubt they're trying to make a civil war in Europe. Why? We're going to show the other story about ISIS, and they're literally going to give ISIS refugee status and start flooding Europe with these people.
But also, speaking of the protection of women and girls, and just the EU in general, because it seems like the UK, even though they left, they're still continuing down, trying not to protect, to unprotect women and girls. But from Basil the Great, now the EU has voted to accept a report that claims that trans women are women as an EU priority for women's rights. Like, the oxymoron and the rhetoric is just insane. The EU are insane, and I mean
everybody that voted for Brexit, as bad as that thing turned out, they're like, at least we're not the EU at this point.
But they're doing very similar, but stupider things over there in the UK too.
Resolution as a whole, roll call vote. The vote is open.
Okay, you can leave it. They're just going to take the vote, and it did get accepted. So transgendered men are women now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go into Keir Starmer.
Yeah. And even though, again, the UK has declared that women are women and that women are just biological women, they are still down on this train. And even after all the investigations into Tavistock and what happened with Keira Bell, they're still at it. From Grifty, quote, Keir Starmer's opens doors so primary schools can now socially transition confused 4-year-olds without parental consent, similar to Canada.
This is absolutely insane. You don't need consent from. This is why they want to take parental rights away.
That's why they want to cancel homeschooling as well. New draft guidance scraps the previous ban, allowing head teachers to let even reception-age children as young as 4 change names, pronouns, and uniforms if deemed in the child's best interest. It's never in the child's best interest to eventually mutilate them.
Changing the uniform means you can put them in a dress without the parents knowing. This is crazy.
Schools can override objecting parents entirely, sidelining families in favor of activist ideology that risks irreversible confusion and harm to tiny kids. Starmer's weak surrender to the trans lobby exposes his contempt for childhood innocence and parental rights.
You don't follow Billboard Chris, go follow him. Yeah. He's a big activist against this issue, what's going on not only in the UK but Canada. And we used to
essentially the entire world now. He's been all over.
And we used to work with him.
Yeah, I did a bit of filming with him. We also filmed an episode together, but then we'd love to interview him again now that it's been quite a few years.
Let's continue on here.
From the Uncensored Patriots, quote, British Army Colonel warns civil war coming to the UK, also the US apparently. If they want to take strong action to prevent the Islamification of the UK, then it's going to mean big trouble. And they're just fully embracing it now. We saw from the first video.
No government, either the government now or no prospective government of the UK, has the guts to stop it. If they want to take strong action to prevent the Islamification of the UK, then it's going to mean big trouble for them. They don't want trouble. They look 4 years ahead. They will kick the can down the road to somebody else. And I think the end result of that is very likely to be civil war in Britain, where the indigenous
physical civil war.
I'm not talking about the American Civil War. No. Armies. I'm talking about something more like Northern Ireland, but on a much more intensive scale, where you have the indigenous British and the some of the immigrant population and the British government all on 3 different sides fighting against each other. And if I'd be very surprised if that doesn't happen, because there's no prospect of the government, any government today, stopping this from occurring.
And that's why it's so important what Donald Trump's doing. He's actually standing up against it and removing illegal immigrants and trying to stop the flow of them coming in there. People often ask, do I think the United States is going to go to a civil war? I don't think so. I think the UK or Europe is far, far, far closer. With the Alberta separatist movement, it could change the paradigm of how countries view their citizens. It's really putting the citizens in control of the country and saying, if we want to separate, we can separate. I think that's going to have a huge add-on effect in Europe. I think it's going to energize a lot of European nations to say, we no longer want to be part of the EU. We're not ideologically aligned. It could have the add-on effect if a Newsom gets in there in 2028, though. Some of the United States may not want to be part of a confederation anymore.
Mm-hmm. Now going over to Germany. Similar about the hours. From Mary Noffel, quote, German Chancellor Merz just told Germans they can't maintain prosperity with 4-day weeks and work-life balance. And Mario says, brother, your economy is dying because you shut down your nuclear plants, made energy unaffordable, drowned businesses in regulations, and let competitiveness collapse. But sure, it's because Germans want weekends.
Yeah, their economies are absolutely collapsing. It has nothing to do with the citizens, but now they're going to want to work their citizens like slaves. They're going to want to put massive work hours on them in order to have them survive.
And they're also continuing to import people that are willing to work for even less. So that's that too. I think it's in German. Do you want me to read the...
Oh, no. I just go to the next one because we do have a lot of articles. I didn't realize it was in German.
Posts. Okay, next. From Jim Ferguson, quote, can you read that? 500 million?
500 million. Yeah, I think it was 500
I'm bad at reading numbers.
500 million pounds.
More for Ukraine, no questions asked. Another £500 million. Yeah, it was right there under there. That's 500 million of British taxpayers' money announced in seconds for urgent air defense in Ukraine. When was it the last time that you saw a detailed breakdown of where the previous billions went from the UK? When was the last time Parliament debated outcomes instead of headlines?
Okay, you can move on to the next.
Do you want the clip or no?
Yeah. I thought you were going to keep reading though.
Do you want me to keep reading?
No, I want you to play the clip.
This afternoon, I'll be confirming that Britain is providing an extra £500 million in urgent air defence to Ukraine. This afternoon.
And it's going to be the never-ending money pit that's going to absolutely collapse the economy of Europe. That's what this is becoming. They want to try to wait Donald Trump out so they can make World War III out of this thing and try to take the $74 trillion that Russia has in natural resources. That's always been Europe's plan. And that's why they marched NATO further and further east every single year.
But also from Wall Street Mav says, quote, European weapon stockpiles are empty of extra weapons and ammo to send to Ukraine. There is nothing left in the stockpiles that can be provided to Ukraine, says Germany Defense Minister Boris Pistorius.
And you,
keep going?
Yeah, I want you to read the story.
Well, that was it. I read it.
There's another story.
This one?
Yes.
From Wall Street Mav, quote, well, you usually talk in the middle. Wall Street Mav, quote, the Netherlands government is about to pass a bill introducing a 36% tax on unrealized capital gains. Every country in Europe has tried this, has canceled it after the wealthy flee to cheaper tax jurisdictions, as we saw in California as well. Even if they have not sold yet, they will be forced to pay taxes, even though the investment could decline and also lose money.
Okay.
This will destroy any compounding and incentive to start new companies or investments.
Yeah, and the UK is trying to do something similar here. This absolutely drives away of investment. This is the opposite of what Donald Trump is doing in the United States, and that's why the United States is now outgrowing China for the first time in a long time. And Donald Trump's only been in office 1 year. They need to pay attention to what he's doing and try to revitalize their economy somehow.
Speaking of economy and revitalizing it, from Ian Miles Chong, we don't really like him, but he has the story. Quote, Macron claims the only reason Elon Musk and SpaceX are successful is because he's over-subsidized and he doesn't know what he's talking about.
This is absolutely crazy coming from Macron. I mean, every government's going to subsidize certain companies, but the United States used to subsidize NASA, and the amount of return they got on that was very, very little. Subsidizing SpaceX, it's far, far more cost effective.
Because SpaceX is also a lot more
Well, and SpaceX has add-on companies, which is their satellite companies, their AI company, I mean, you name it.
We cannot pretend just to have private money. And if you look at the US, you have a lot of private money in the US on the nuclear energy, but you have a lot of public money. If I take energy, it's true. If I take space, it's true. Everybody is fascinated by Starlink. I'm super happy. But if you are lucid, Mr. Musk is probably one of the guys of the world who had in his pockets the most billion, I mean, we had $1 billion of the American taxpayers in order to be subsidized. I mean, Elon Musk is first an over-subsidized guy by the federal agency in the US. Good news. He's super innovative. And he became competitive thanks to this American approach. We cannot.
Yeah, what he needs to do is stop subsidizing the welfare state of France and start building something. Start investing in companies where you're going to get rates of return on these things.
Back to the UK, the people fighting to remain as the UK and not whatever new state they're trying to make it into. From Dave, quote, an award-winning fish and chip shop has been forced to take down its Union Jack mural by a woke Greenwich council. Why? Because some people found it offensive.
Well, and this is why it's so important that the United States is finally pushing back, whether it was the Bad Bunny thing in the Super Bowl and people want to call Americans racist or whatever. Screw that. You're going to lose your culture if you don't start standing up. This is an example of the UK. They need to stand up. They're currently losing their culture.
And there have been a few British patriots that have been trying to stand up.
What the hell has happened to Great Britain? An award-winning fish and chip shop in Greenwich in southeast London has been ordered by the council to paint over a Union Jack mural, claiming it's inappropriate for the area. A Union flag in Great Britain. How inappropriate? Greenwich Council have said they received a number of complaints about the humanoid fish mural, which features the phrase, a great British meal. Many tourists from around the world love the mural and love taking photos with the mural in the background. But no, our jiggery wokery society wants to destroy us and wipe out any display of Britishness. I'm pretty sure if it was a Palestinian flag in the mural, it'd be a different story. Let me know what you think in the comments.
But also speaking,
that's the freaking point. Like, if it's a Muslim flag or a Palestinian flag, it's going to be racist to say anything, and then you're going to get thrown in jail for hate speech under UK law. But they can tell you to take down the country's flag. This is insane.
One of the country's flags and the Union Jack, but also he mentioned there the council were the ones that are trying to make him take it down, and we have seen a influx of Muslims and of the migrants that go to the UK actually end up in these positions, be it in councils or in even smaller towns, having the political power that they need to actually start implementing things like this. So a lot of the councils and a lot of the way the British lower government works is through, I mean, it's not through the British people anymore.
Yeah, it's just bureaucracy, layers and layers of bureaucracy. And then immigrants are starting to take over this bureaucracy, and they're starting to implement Sharia law. They're starting to make people take down the flag of its own country, where they put up Palestinian flags.
It's conquering, essentially. From Wall Street Apes. Okay, quote, "I literally can't believe this is real. The European Union just released official new guidelines stating that members of..." Oh, this was the story.
This is the big story, I think, in Europe. I kind of wanted to put it later on so we didn't get dinged or censored.
Members of ISIS, I will say, can now be granted asylum and imported into Sweden. No, seriously, read that again. I've had to triple check this to make sure it was real. So the U.S.A, the European Union Agency for Asylum, basically the organization that decides who gets to claim asylum within the borders of the European Union.
And we can play the clip. Okay. He's going to kind of go over it here.
Okay.
I had to triple check this to make sure it was real. So the EUAA, the European Union Agency for Asylum, basically the organization that decides who gets to claim asylum within the borders of the European Union. Their new guidelines suggest granting asylum to ISIS affiliates in Sweden. Now, the wild part is they're not talking about people who are currently in Sweden. No, their new guidelines say that ISIS members living in the Middle East now have a reasonable fear of persecution, basically saying that ISIS fighters may no longer be safe in the Middle East and therefore should be permitted to claim asylum and go to Sweden. They have revamped their guidelines to shuttle ISIS fighters from the Middle East. These are dudes dedicated to jihad.
And this is how you stoke a civil war. It's obvious at this point. This is mask off. They're legalizing all these illegal migrants, whether it's in France, whether it's in Spain. Those are two stories we showed last week. Spain legalized 500,000 of them. Now that's still not enough. The people aren't revolting enough. There's not enough civil war. So now they're just going to import ISIS into the country because ISIS is in danger in the Middle East. Are you out of your freaking mind? I mean, it's obvious what the European government wants. And this isn't just Sweden. They're going to put it in Sweden, and then they brought it out to all the European Union, and then the UK adopts it, and then Canada adopts it.
And because they feel they may no longer be safe in the Middle East, now they have to go to Sweden, and Sweden has to let them in. I have no other way to put this than what the fuck is...
I didn't want him to swear, but yeah, I mean, the sentiment is appropriate there.
Okay.
And again, they're just showing their hand too much. They're making it way too obvious, in my opinion, at least.
Yeah.
But we do have some comments, so I will read them. Tracy Bennett says, Candace needs an exorcist. I'm not going to disagree there.
She got an exorcist. She's not going to be on next week, so.
Oh, yeah. Maybe that's what she's doing. Tracy Bennett also says, Candace wasn't speaking to Charlie. Her phone has been tapped into. She hated Charlie. Yeah. And I think more and more of that will also start coming out. I hope.
I'm
a lot of the lies will.
Well, she's doing the expose on Erika. I wonder if anybody's going to do the expose on Candace.
Well, Alex Jones said he wanted to do one. Nick also said he wanted to do it, and neither of them have done anything about that.
No, Nick did.
They just complain about Trump.
Nick Fuentes did a big expose on her husband and just kind of put a lot of interesting tidbits on how he's connected to MI6 and his family's connected to the UK government. I mean, they have hundreds of millions of dollars. The amount of money Candace Owens' husband and connections that guy has is insane.
Trent Briggs says Candace still getting good viewership though.
Yeah.
For us or for her.
Well, I didn't put it on the cover today because it was we did make monetization today and we got the 1,000 subscribers. And I just wanted to say thank you to everybody in the United States, Mexico, and Alberta and Canada, I guess.
Yeah.
But Canadians typically don't like a lot of the stories we do.
Don't support. Rivs says UK has been totally self-ridiculed and dismantled. And I think I see it as another kind of, there's a no win-win. I mean, there's people trying to fight against it and against the insanity, but we're even seeing the Reform Party turn kind of loopy and go the other way against a bunch of the principles they said that they supported and wanted to enforce.
Yeah, I mean, the Reform UK is the best you have to vote for, but they've went against a lot of their first principles, and it's a little bit saddening, but you don't have anybody else at this point, so I guess you vote them in it anyway. What's making Canada, the UK, the EU look like massive frauds is Donald Trump. He's taking common sense policies, he's implementing them. He said, I'm going to shut down the border. 2 days later, it's shut down. 4 years, you couldn't do it. I mean, and it's crazy because you have Pierre Poilievre sitting right there in Canada. He has common sense policies, much like what a lot of Trump's are, but with a Canadian spin, maybe not as hard-nosed, but they refuse to vote him in. I mean, it's a socialized country at this point.
Mm-hmm. And Tracy,
socialist country at this point.
Yeah. Tracy Bennett says a lot of bots and people who enjoy watching her get unhinged. Those are the only supporters I guess Candace has. And yes, I totally agree with that. But it's sad that a lot of bigger commentators, and we've seen Megyn Kelly being called out, Jason Whitlock being called out, a lot of people that are still throwing support behind her and even defending her, that are like bigger names within the political commentator space. And I think it's going to come back to haunt them if they don't say anything soon.
I don't think so, but
Yes.
I used to support Candace, and I came around. I
never did.
There was a lot of people right around the time that I kind of shifted. I was like, there's just nothing here. I've been following her for too long, and it's getting a little ridiculous. I mean, I shifted, but I noticed there was a lot of other commentators that stopped talking about her, or they shifted as well. I shifted, but I continue to talk about her. Number one, yeah, it is good for views, but number two, it's important to point out that there's nothing there because if she continues to dig into this thing for a year, people are just going to assume there's something there, even though they're not watching.
And they're going to get even more riled up. And as she said, there's going to be a revolution if they find Tyler Robinson guilty. And that's insane that she's trying to defend him.
How is she building that narrative when the trial hasn't even really freaking started yet? That Tyler Robinson is completely innocent. She hasn't seen the evidence. Neither have I. So I don't know one way or the other.
But she's lured so many people, especially women, into this psychotic narrative that she's concocting, that I think, again, she's also trapped herself into continuing with it. But I think it'll just continue to show the insanity of it all. Tracy Bennett says, I reckon Candace has nannies. What did she mean by sleep-trained toddlers? I also thought that, and a lot of people also pointed that out. And I also think, as I mentioned, because, again, I did competitive dance, I never pledged a sorority, but I was kind of involved with that. I did Girl Guides. I also was a guide, a guider. I even forget what they're called, but in Canada, I also volunteered a lot with girls. I worked at two different high schools, and I was in charge of, it was a boarding school, one of them, and I was in charge of a whole floor of like 45 girls and mentoring them. And she clearly has never had that mentorship relationship. I've also taught dance, and it's not uncommon and it's not crazy, especially if you have a girl like I think her name was Jillian, as the one that's claiming that she was groomed by Erika, to kind of have to speak softer to them and to build that relationship to help them out. But that, I think Erika was just trying to help out, maybe encourage her to go into pageantry, to kind of shift her focus away from
she's claiming
the issues she had.
She's claiming she's groomed this child into what? Nothing happened with the child. So what are you implying? You're implying that she's doing these to these children, but you have no actual child that has a negative effect here.
And again, she's now an adult, and I think she's getting, because she's told the three different versions of this story as well, the person that is making these claims about Erika, and she's told three different versions. So which one is it, and what do you actually feel, and what proof and evidence do you have? Yes, I know. And Sean says, they may wipe out Britishness, but you'll have better food. Probably can't afford the new food, but it's there.
Oh.
I do like British, like original, actual, traditional British food.
I love fish and chips. And there's
I love beans on toast. Again, weird that way.
Sometimes in Mexico City, it's hard to find a lot of things. In Canada, I mean, there was a wide variety of different restaurants. Here there is as well, but it's harder to get around the city. But man, I've been craving a beef dip lately. I really want one. And now that I see the fish and chips, I grabbed that story the other day. Now I see it again. I want fish and chips.
That one's easier to get. That's more manageable to get. But beef dip,
you can't trust fish in Mexico City.
I do. I never get sick. He can, like, if he smells off milk, he'll start feeling sick and bloated and horrible.
Well, a lot of people don't know Mexico City's in the middle of the mountains, in the middle of the country. It's nowhere near the ocean, so I'm not.
But I mean, there's good suppliers too.
Okay.
I'll defend Mexico on that one. But also, I mean, there's great Mexican food. But it does get tiring after a while. Sean also says, when Candace was employed by the Daily Wire, it was odd. I mean, I think they saw, I mean, again, she can build the narrative. She clearly has shown that people are interested in how she presents things, but I think the Daily Wire did miscalculate there. And they saw talent and more there than there was.
Yeah, I don't like the Daily Wire. I used to like them a lot, and I used to watch them a lot. I don't. They still have Michael Knowles and Matt Walsh that I like, but the rest I can take them or leave them. That being said, they were amazing at scouting talent, whether it was Britt Cooper, whether it was Candace Owens. Even if you don't like Candace Owens, you can say the camera loves her and she knows how to build a narrative.
And I'll also say now Isabel Brown. I mean, you may or may not like the Daily Wire, but I do like Isabel Brown and what she's been doing now and how they've been managing that whole relationship.
So they've been great at scouting talent. The problem, they're not good at retaining talent.
Mm-hmm. And that might also say a lot about them as a company, but I do still like some things they do, especially with their talent. Okay, let's move on.
Well,
finally.
It's a shame what happened with Jordan Peterson, because I used to love Jordan Peterson, but yeah.
Okay, now let's actually move on to Australia. And we haven't had that many stories lately about Australia, but now...
Well, on our last show, you said I didn't get enough stories, so I got a lot more today, and we're running out of time.
No, we have 40 minutes. We have 20 minutes, sorry, not 40. Because then, I'll say this later. From AUS Integrity, quote, Labour in Australia declares 68% of Australians, those who want lower or much lower immigration, as extremists. Because, of course, it's always the Commonwealth countries that are the craziest. Labour is intentionally ignoring plain facts that lowering the rate of immigration, as proven in Canada and New Zealand, lowers house prices.
Yeah, they're basically saying if you don't want immigration, you're an extremist, and they're going to say it here.
Seems that... Canada and New Zealand, I think, to a certain extent, are seeing some moderation, even some decreases in their housing costs. Both countries seem to have taken a fairly aggressive stance on migration, reduced those levels. Have you looked at the relationship between migration and house prices around the world, and whether or not the approach of Canada and New Zealand is working?
No, Senator.
Why haven't you looked at what might work overseas?
Senator, we're continuously looking for overseas experience about housing policy. We're also working closely with colleagues across government, including colleagues responsible for migration policy in the Department of Home Affairs. But you asked a very specific question, and the answer to your very specific question was no.
There's a section of the Liberal and National Party that are all about importing extremist ideas and exporting jobs. I understand that.
In every poll that's asked, 2/3 of Australians want migration levels to come down. So the idea that you would label 2/3 of Australians as extreme views is unbelievable.
That's not
representing the 2/3 of Australians want migration to come down.
One person
But not only are you not listening to those
extremist
people,
ideas,
you're not even asking the question about what they are concerned
You wonder
about.
why the centre.
Yeah, and you're going to frame, it's kind of like framing, it's like what happened in the United States. They were framing everybody as a racist that said anything about immigration. Over here, they're doing the same thing, but they're trying to shame people with the extremist label. These labels are no longer going to work in politics. People are shedding these labels. No more. We've had enough of the real world consequences of mass immigration.
Because also from Australia, quote, Treasury confirms 83% of all new job growth in the last year are non-market jobs. In other words, taxpayer-funded jobs. And in those jobs, you can't speak freely and you must toe the party line. Very similar to Canada.
Yeah, this is important to Canada. I think it was it 1 out of 4?
1 out of 4. 1
out of 4 Canadians work for the federal government. If you work for the federal government, that means you can't speak up. Otherwise, you lose your job.
They're predominantly, they're considered non-market because they're predominantly government.
They're reliant on government funding. So they're not good jobs, is that right?
Jobs wouldn't exist without government funding. Is that right? Not all of them. So there are some, for instance, in some of this stuff, like in education, there'll be private schools, employment in private schools in that, for example.
Okay. So how many government jobs have been created in the last year?
Government
across the country, because it's reporting employment across the country, as you'd understand.
So in terms of 1.2%. In terms of public jobs, it's to the September quarter 2024, it's about 1.2% growth over the year.
And of a proportion of overall employment growth?
as a proportion. So private was 1.8% growth. 40% is about. About. In terms of shares, about 40% is public.
40% is public.
Yeah.
Okay, so 40% of the employment growth in the last year, you're saying is government-funded jobs.
40% represents the public, well, how the ABS defines public, yeah.
Which is separate from how you just define non-market.
That's right. Yeah.
So to use your non-market definition, how big
they're
would that
just
be?
being rats trying to go around. Over 80% of the jobs created in Australia were government funded.
In the last year, 83 were.
And it's a similar stat that's happening in Canada. It's crazy in Canada because you don't need much more than 25% of the vote to win a minority government. I mean, that's a huge voting block. If you're employing all those people, giving them all bonuses.
Yeah, it's another strategy they've been using.
Yeah.
And because that sector in Canada has also grown lately. So wonder why. Sean also says, I still love Ben Shapiro, followed him for 15 years plus. I don't dislike him as much as most people do. I do think he has had, the wrong ideas and supported the wrong things and thrown hate towards the wrong things as well. But certain things he says, when he's more relaxed or in cultural topics, I think he's a bit better.
Yeah, you like him. I don't like him.
Again, I don't like him
because he is a neocon in the most basic sense. He's a neocon. You're going to go to war if you elect these neocons. He's trying to, within the Daily Wire, there are a lot of neocons, not everybody, but they're really rebranding what a neocon is and really tried to repitch it to the general public. Okay, let's go into, and this was...
We have two more.
Oh, okay.
Sean says, Australia and New Zealand are unique geographically, where they can completely control immigration, essentially, and they screwed it up. Amazing. Yeah. Exactly, they're islands. How do they get that many people to remote islands? Because they're doing it with intent, with a lot of intent for specific purposes. And again, we've seen the effects of that in Australia recently. In December, was it? Yeah. Sean says, don't be a Republican whistleblower and work for the state of California. Learned that the hard way and lost my job many years ago. Had to leave to Sacramento.
Yeah.
That's not that far away.
Sorry to hear that.
But good that you were a whistleblower.
Yeah. There needs to be more whistleblowers, especially now. The problem is it needs to happen in blue states, and there's just no cover. As soon as somebody blows the whistle in these blue states, the infrastructure of these states go after them, even though the federal government's trying to provide protection. It's just not working out.
Then you had a new section that we don't have a
new section. We didn't have a logo for it, but I took it on the advice of one of the viewers. I called it the pill. So it's red pill, blue pill, black pill.
White pill.
Yeah.
So we don't have a transition, but...
We'll make one.
Yes. We'll make one over the weekend. And eventually we do want to start another, maybe...
It's more of a cultural section. Things where I don't necessarily... It's not geopolitics, basically.
Which is the rest of the show. From Brianna Morello, quote, this breaks my heart. A mother details how she just wants to be a stay-at-home mother and take care of her family rather than working in the corporate world.
Okay, I'm going to make this quick because I have to go into a meeting. I have 3 meetings today. I've been in the corporate life for almost half my life. For context, I am 40 years old. I have 2 children who are 11 and 7. And I fell for it. I fell for this thing where, go to college, get your degree. If you want to have kids, you can do it all. You can have a career, you can have kids, you can just do everything. Well, I don't want to do everything. I don't want to do that anymore. I fell for that shit. Do not fall for it. Do not fall for that shit. I want to take my kids to school. I want to pick them up from school. I want to be there when they get home. I want to chaperone for them, volunteer at school. I just want to go to the gym, clean my house, do laundry, go to the grocery store, and just be home. So do me a favor. Do not fall for that shit because it is not worth it. It's a joke. It's a joke.
Okay, you can leave it there. And
don't do it.
Good on her for actually speaking out. Feminism was a big lie. This was sold to a generation of women and it was shoved down their throats like there was no other option. There was always the other option. There's just so much propaganda against it. I'm really hoping these women that are kind of aging out that went down that path are going to speak up like this woman did so the next generation doesn't fall down that same path. It's not to say if they don't want to have a job that they can't. What's it saying is there is another option that taking that option is okay, especially if you can find a husband that can support you to stay at home.
An option, yes, but that has been villainized by the feminist movement for the longest time and for decades. It's not just one generation. It's been now multiple generations of women that have fallen into this trick. And it was concocted by, and I'm surprised more people don't know about this, a lot of the support thrown behind the feminist movement and the introduction and the insertion of women into the workplace and away from homes, away from their children, away from a lifestyle that was sustainable at one point with just one income earner in the household, was the big corporate elites of the United States. A lot of Rockefellers, Ford, etc. A lot of them supported the feminist movement, and also a lot of parts of the government also supported that for the introduction of women in the workplace, because that would lower wages. If people don't understand the concept of that, that is part of why it was done, and also to have more workers in a workplace and in industries that now would be able to have more women working, because again, women cannot do a lot of the work and a lot of the jobs that men do. And just recently, they've continued to state that they can. That is how it started, and that is the path that it went down, and then it was sold to the younger generations as the default, the de facto. You have no other option, and if you do want that other option, then well, you're backwards thinking. You shouldn't want that. You need to have your own money. You have to be independent. You have to get a college job. You have to do this and this and that. And while I do agree that yes, women can have it all in a way, they can't have it at the same time. So if women do want to be mothers, and we should encourage young women to want that for their future as well, because we're seeing the effects of not wanting that, and if not incentivizing that now for like 2 or 3 generations, where we're having a population collapse in basically in the entire world, then do that, and then you can go get a career. Then you can go have a job once your children grow up. And she said she wants to be able to pick up her kids from school, but I will again argue for homeschooling more as well, because a lot of these ideas have been passed down through the school system.
Yeah, it repressed wages immensely, but the same thing is happening with immigration now. It's you've already brought women into the workforce, which repressed wages one time, but now you bring in mass immigration and it's repressing wages again. And what happens when AI comes in? It takes a lot of more jobs, that represses wages. And then if you have actual robotics combined with AI, that's more repressed wages. So it's not looking good. But let's go into the last article for this section, which was the pill.
Okay. From Theo Wold, quote, America and Europe simply do not have any unifying shared principles anymore. Europe refuses to protect free speech. They buy communications from China. They are reliant on Russia for energy and then deny it. And they've imported Middle Eastern cultures antithetical to the West. I explain, and then he blah, blah, blah.
Stating what we have long known, the emperor has no clothes. There really isn't any unifying shared principles or foundational precepts that cross the Atlantic and are shared here in the United States and with Europeans. We don't have an agreement on the protection of free speech or the right of protest or civil liberty. We don't have an agreement on what kinds of economic exchange we should have. We insisted throughout the course of the 45 presidential administration into the Biden administration, please don't buy component parts from Huawei. Don't incorporate them into secure channel communication systems. And most of Europe refused. They ignored the U.S. pleas.
And Huawei being a Chinese
satellite company. And then secondly, on energy issues, we have not had the same sort of meeting of the minds that were true in the immediate aftermath of World War II. So on a whole host of issues that used to define the European-American alliance, it's essentially deteriorated. And one last thing I'll just say. The foundation of the transatlantic alliance in large part was predicated on the Anglo-American cultural edifice, our shared literature, our shared legal systems, our shared sort of cultural appreciation. And we're 2 different countries now, the United Kingdom and the United States. Most Americans couldn't tell you who Blackstone is, let alone Brits who have any appreciation for Longfellow or Whitman. So we have grown apart as a natural consequence of demographic change, but also of the deterioration of ancient cultures. It's a new world, and in many ways, the new world, meaning South and North America, must define for itself what the future looks like and let Europe handle their own mess.
Okay, and one big thing I would say here is Alberta and Saskatchewan really have grown apart from Canada. The culture is completely different. The people are completely different. The first principles and their values are completely different. This is an opportunity for them, to separate, stand on their own 2 feet and really have freedom again.
Mm-hmm. And we do have one more comment, but after this, we're moving to RUMBLE, the channel. Oh, I'll show you the channel name on the next screen. But first, I'll read Sean's comment here on YouTube before we move away. Sean says, problem is the state and the union, in my case, SEIU, will actively keep you fired if you don't support socialist ruination the unions advocate for. And we both worked for a union as well in Canada, for a little bit at least. I've only worked for one. Oh, no, I worked for two because I worked for a university as well.
Unions are freaking crazy now, especially in the United States, because the elites within the union or the heads of the union that are running the union have one ideology, and the workers of the union have a completely different ideology. And that's why we're seeing union members breaking from union heads when it comes to voting. Unions are now voting Trump because it's really, he represented that populist movement.
Some of them, not
The
all.
Democrats used to be the blue collar worker party. It's no longer that.
And had the unions in their pockets for a long
Yeah,
time.
they still have the union heads in their pockets.
Yes, but not the workers.
I mean, there's so much money being funneled left, right, and center and not being used on the union itself. It's a shame.
And Sean also says, and thank you so much, says, Nat, you were great on WDW Pro the other day, by the way. Thank you so much. That was yesterday. And today they had the shorter clip of my Bad Bunny communist expose, I guess they called it. I was like, oh, watch that one. I'll re-share it, I guess, or whatever it's called. Sean says, Biden instituted mass migration in order to keep wages low during his reckless spending and money printing inflationary program. We see the separation of wages to housing and food due to this.
Yeah, and it's becoming a mask off moment now, not just in the United States, but especially in Europe, the UK. They're just legalizing these migrants and having new voter blocks. They know liberal ideology. People that are traditionally from these countries aren't going to vote for mass immigration and a lot of these other globalist policies. Who will vote for it are immigrants. That's why they're importing them legally or illegally, and then they'll just legalize them later, make them voters, and then they have their new voting block. And if they can't win the election, they'll just import more of that voting block.
Yeah. And also, again, repress wages, and it's more convenient to have cheaper labor for everybody, especially those in corporations at the top. But now we are moving over to RUMBLE for some spicy stories that we can't share here on YouTube. The Rumble name is down there. It's the same as this account. Yeah, just go over there. We'll see you there. And thank you so much to all the subscribers here on YouTube. Again, we're super appreciative and want to continue to support the Alberta independence movement and actually see it through.
Yeah, thank you for everybody that did get us to monetization, which was 1,000 subscribers. We'll see you over on RUMBLE
in a few seconds.